Yes. Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is today. We have a lot of business to get to. Before we jump into it, I want to say happy Wednesday. I hope your week is unfolding beautifully, all downhill from here. Bunch of stuff cooking out there, lots fresh out of the oven that we're going to get to today. Really grateful that you're joining us as we go through history together. Here we've got a new memo and an opinion and order that came down from the judge, Judge Boasberg. You remember this guy. He is the judge handling the Alien Enemies Act case. We remember him. He's somebody who was appointed by Barack Obama, was the same guy who sentenced Ray Epps to probation. And now he's holding President Trump in contempt. And so we're going to go through that. Now, I'm not real sure where this is going to go because Trump has a lot of power in this game, and we'll break down what that means. But we'll read through the Supreme Court decision because remember, they kind of told him that he doesn't have jurisdiction over this case at all, that it should be filed in habeas over in Texas, and that has not happened. So we'll refresh our recollection and ask ourselves why Judge Boasberg is violating a clear Supreme Court directive and why he's continuing to hold on to this case. We'll also then go through his opinion, read through it, and then rest assured that the appeals will fly. Trump White House advisor Stephen Cheung came out and said, we're appealing this immediately. And these terrorists are not coming back. So Boasberg dropped a big one today, and we'll go through it, and we'll see where this is going to ultimately end up. But I think they're biting off more than they can chew here. So all that coming up in the first segment. Then we got to talk about this Kilmar situation because, golly, they had a rough one today. All the Democrat Kilmar MS-13 gangbanger lovers, they've been screaming at us for weeks about how this dude is like such an amazing person. No evidence of gang violence. He's like a barber, an electrician. He helps little old ladies across the street and raises puppies and kittens and all the crap. Well, turns out, in addition to that fake stuff, they were also burying the truth about who this person was. And he's got, count them, 2 domestic violence cases that have been uncovered by our friend Andy NGO, which is how you pronounce it. And he posted over on his locals evidence of these 2 domestic violence cases. Oh, which are orders of protection or restraining orders or temporary, whatever your state calls them. But 2 of those puppies, and the documents are flying around out there, and we'll go through them because he posted what they are. As you can see, they're domestic violence, and there are 2 of them. Documents also posted from Colin Rugg and others showing us what happened inside. Even Homeland Security gave us the details on the punching, the scratching, and the beatings that this MS-13 gangbanger was unleashing upon his wife. 2 of them. Wild. And all the Democrats are going down to El Salvador to support this dude. They had rallies today. Absolutely nuts. So in addition to that, Pam Bondi also came out and she dropped this new document. You can see fresh out of the oven. I was sitting there prepping for the show. I'm like, another one. 127, she dropped this one, said, we're releasing additional information about Kilmar Abrego, the beater of women, and dropped the entire report right here for our perusal that we're going to read through. There's that evidence that they said didn't exist, calling us racists and bigots and due process violators and people throwing American citizens out of our country and nonsense. All right, so we'll read through it. It's just going to be a doozy today. It's like Christmas morning. So we've got that. Meanwhile, as I mentioned, we're learning that since this dude beats his wife, according to her, who filed these complaints, she said that he is a loving father. She said he's an excellent father and been the love of my life and the main provider. I've been devastated. And that sounds strange because if she's willing to come out here and make these fake statements about being an excellent, loving father, maybe he doesn't beat the kids. I don't know. Maybe that's true. Maybe he may not beat the kids, only beat her. She's not saying here like, oh, the love of my life. Maybe she loves being beaten. I don't know. But feels like if she's going to come out and make a nice little statement like this so she can raise, how much money have they raised? Oh, 160, 170 grand. That's nice. Yeah. It's like a couple fentanyl deals for him. But anyways, they're raising a bunch of money. And if the point is, if she's going to make fake statements like this, maybe she'll be willing to make fake statements when he's applying for withholding of removal to El Salvador because of pupusa attacks. So all that now, as we saw, just absolutely wild. We had a bunch of Democrats who were going down there. They sent a COTUS request to go visit CCOT, and this one lunatic, well, that's one of them, AOC, we'll come back to her. But we also saw that this guy was down there. Senator Chris Van Hollen's like, I'm flying down to free a woman beater who beats people in my district. American citizens, right? She's living there in Maryland. So he left. He's going to go down to rescue the beater and try to bring the battered wife, the abuser, home. Incredible. So you can't even explain it. It's like, I couldn't have written it better myself. Let's send all the Democrats down to go fight for a terrorist in El Salvador. And let's make him a woman beater who beats his wife and then hangs out with gangs. How could you even do that? Absolutely nuts. So we got that. Then we're going to talk about the poison pill DOJ attorney who was fired. Now, we were getting a little ahead of ourselves. Earlier this week on the streams, you noticed I was like, this DOJ attorney got fired. I mean, suspended because he hadn't been fired yet. I'm like, fire him. Well, that has happened. He is now fired. So we'll go through that. And this guy has been pretty hard to find information on. His name is Erez Ruvini, trying to get some info on the dude. He's kind of hiding in the gutters like a lot of these poison pills do. And he's now gone. We had some warning on that. People saying he's a lifelong public servant, 14 years, 9 months. That's why he's fired. That's why. That's the point. So we'll talk about it. JD Vance jumped into this battle and had some banger posts that we'll read through. And we'll also see what Doug Burgum says, because he's saying now the army is going to take over the border. Okay. No more of this cartel business happening there. So reaction and more, including from Trisha, Ohio, aka Trisha McLaughlin, who's been doing a great job explaining how this stuff works out there on the media. So we'll listen to her give us an update on this before we turn to our final segment, which is all about Tish, baby. Tish James in big trouble. Got a referral over for criminal fraud. Mortgage fraud. We've talked about this before. Talked about this with our friend Stephen Gardner. And she's got multiple properties. Said that the 5-bedroom was actually a 4-bedroom when it wasn't. And now the letter has gone out, which is a criminal referral to Pamela, Jay Bondi, and our friend Todd Blanche. Heck yeah, baby. Oh, how the tables have turned. And so we'll read through that. We'll also see what Tish is saying, because, man, she looks extra Tishified today. Look at that right there. Tishified. Whoa. Whoa. Pound in the chest and everything. She's going nuts. Well, zoom in. Yeah. Whoa. Back up. All right. So we'll see how much of this we can take. The cameraman was just getting pretty wild. And so she's screaming at everybody about Lord knows what. Lots to talk about. And we're excited that you're here and with us. And thank you, my friends, for being here. Thanks for joining us. We have a lot to get to. So I just wanted to say thank you to our members. We had a great members only stream this morning. And after we had our members stream this morning, we went over and we hung out with our friends at the Liberty Spenders podcast, hosted by Kurt and Kristen. We had a great talk. It was a lot of fun. So shout out to our members who came and joined us. And they saw you in the chat. Like, this is crazy. You guys have a community you're building here. We're like, yeah, baby, it's amazing. So it's a lot of fun. So thanks to our members who came over and joined us this morning. When we did that, it was kind of like a backstage thing they had set up. So it was pretty fun. But thanks, members, for becoming members. We will be back with a members stream tomorrow at the regular time, 12 noon Eastern. If you want to become a member, it's a great way to meet some other people in the community. We do extra content. We really deliver for our members, including on Saturdays. We appreciate you joining if you're looking to connect and be a part of something amazing. And we'll see you inside. All right. So without any further ado, let's get to it, because we are jamming today. So we're starting with Boasberg. Let's get this puppy queued back up here, because I got a little bit excited during that warm-up intro. But here we begin. Contempt. That is what the order is from Judge Boasberg. You remember this case, JGG versus Donald J. Trump. We got a 46-page memorandum opinion and order coming down from this judge against President Trump, holding him in contempt. The question, of course, what comes next? Trump is already vowing to appeal this. The question is, What will those appeals look like? Does this judge, Boasberg, even have jurisdiction? The Supreme Court said, no, you don't. So what is happening here? And why is this judge continuing to do this? Well, I think we know why. He is a Democrat operative, essentially. Barack Obama in 2011 appointed him. He served in a number of different roles. He has been working against, I would say, Trump for a while. He sentenced Ray Epps to probation. He has a wife who is heavily invested in abortion and women's clinics. His daughter does some stuff with indigency and potentially illegal immigration and more. And you can see the litany here. It is a thoroughbred Democratic family. Right? And so, of course, now they're coming in and trying to attack Trump. And they think that they've got something working here. So the judge is responding to Trump, as you recall, not turning the airplanes around once they were in the air. They filed a request to stop the removal of these people. This is JGG and the other pseudo-anonymous people who are certified as a class by this judge. He said, turn the planes around in midair. Trump said they were already removed, so we're not turning them around. And said, you don't have jurisdiction anyways, by the way. If they want to challenge this, the proper remedy, their due process is to file a habeas petition in Texas where they're currently housed. And so this was battled back and forth for a while. And recall, before we go into the judge's opinion, what the Supreme Court said, because they were pretty clear not long ago, April 7, 2025, Judge Boasberg, probably should read this again. But they said, all right, remember this case involves the removal of Tren de Aragua gangbangers. Trump issued a proclamation, and then what happened is 5 detainees sued. They said, we're not gangbangers. How dare you? They got certified as a class of gang members in America, certified by Boasberg. And they sought relief under habeas. Remember, they put that as part of their claim. They know that that is the right claim. That's what they're asking for. It's about their detention. It's about their the body being detained. So in March 14th, Boasberg issued 2 TROs, we recall, saying there's a class action of gangbangers, and all non-citizens who were in custody who were subject to Trump's proclamation to afuera these people are prohibited. 14 days it got extended. Now, the DC Circuit Court, Court of Appeals, denied Trump. The government then took this up and went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, as we remember, granted the application and vacate the TROs. Okay, the judge's orders to do all the things, return the plane, give me the answers, all that are vacated, saying the detainees, the gangbangers, Tren de Aragua, they seek equitable relief. They want the court to do something, which is to stop the implementation of the proclamation that Trump issued that said that they're gangbangers. But they say, we're not going to do that. We're not going to go in and talk about the equitable relief, whether they're gangbangers or any of those things about TRO, about the proclamation or more. Here's why. Regardless of whether they formally request relief from confinement, whatever they're asking for, their claims fall within the core, this is the Supreme Court writing, Judge, of the writ of habeas corpus, and thus must be brought in habeas, not in a fake lawsuit brought by lawyers who are saying this is a constitutional infringement under the APA and all these other claims. They're challenging their holding of their physical body. That's a habeas claim. You can't dress it up as something else. Supreme Court said it. And immediate physical release is not the only remedy under the writ of habeas corpus. And so they said the detainees are confined in Texas. So venue is improper in the District of Columbia, right? Saying that this judge should not have this case. And, venue, the judge is going to say, well, it's a little different than jurisdiction. It's like, well, I can still handle some parts of this claim, but not as to the habeas claims, right? So the judge will try to separate these out. Now, as a result, the government is likely to succeed. Trump is going to win on the merits of this claim. So all of his orders, everything he should have asked for, were invalid, right? Because the judge didn't have jurisdiction. The core complaint is a habeas claim. That should have been brought in Texas. Now, the detainees also sought equitable relief against summary removal. Now, although judicial review under the AEA, the Alien Enemies Act, that's what Trump invoked, and that's an act passed by Congress. So now we've got 2 co-equal branches versus 1. We have the president acting with the full power behind him of Congress. Both houses passed it. He signed it into law. It's extremely representative of the American people. So having some other judges just certify a class of gang members and then issue a nationwide injunction feels pretty offensive to all of us. Now, we have held that an individual subject to detention and removal under that statute, they say, is entitled to, quote, judicial review as to questions of interpretation and constitutionality of the act, as well as whether he or she is in fact an alien of an enemy, 14 years of age or older. So you're entitled to that, to a judicial review. Now, the detainee's rights against summary removal, however, are not currently in dispute, right? The government has even admitted, yeah, they are subject. They do get judicial review. Nobody's challenged that. All you do is take that and you do it in habeas. Detainees are entitled to notice an opportunity to be heard, right? It's an opportunity to be heard. If they want to file a habeas petition, then they can file it. They have an opportunity to do it. They don't have to be heard. They can be, you say, hey, you're being removed. You got notice. You're getting out of the country. They say, all right, you got me. I'm out of here. The Democrats would want this to be different, right? The Democrats would say this is not enough due process. They want due process coming out of their ears because they want everything coming out of their everything. It's disgusting. But they want more due process that will mandatory hearings with trials, and they should all be appointed lawyers, and the ACLU should get endless contracts to handle all the claims. They got an opportunity. You're going to go tomorrow. You have an opportunity to contact a lawyer, find somebody to file a claim. Otherwise, you're gone. Go file your claim from El Salvador, Venezuela, or Guatemala, or wherever. More specifically, though, the Supreme Court wraps up. They say AEA detainees must receive notice after the date of this order that they are subject to removal under the act, right? After the date of this order, moving forward. So contempt, what's he being held in contempt for? The notice must be afforded within a reasonable time and in such a manner as will allow them to actually seek habeas relief, right? So you can't be like, okay, you're getting on an airplane and here's your notice. You're gone. Like, what? Now, for all the rhetoric of the dissents from the whiny Sotomayors and the rest of them, today's order in pure curiam confirms that the detainees subject to removal orders are entitled to notice and an opportunity to challenge their removal. And by the way, they did. These people challenged it. They filed a lawsuit. The judge issued a class action and stopped the whole thing. So how can they come and complain like, we didn't know? Yes, you did. You had plenty of time. For the reasons set forth, we hold, the Supreme Court, that venue lies in the district of confinement. So this should be held in Texas. So we're going to go to the judge next. The dissents would have the court delay resolving that issue. We see no benefit in that. Now, what we're doing is vacating the orders of Judge Boasberg. They're vacated. Gone. And the minute orders granting the TRO and the extension are vacated. They're deleted. You're done, Judge. And you don't have jurisdiction over this case. It's a pretty clear opinion. Okay, it's not that complicated. So what does this judge do? Like a whiny, spoiled brat baby, he writes a 46-pager and just goes nuts. He says, on the evening of Saturday, March 15th, I wrote a TRO that bars certain individuals from being afuera out of here. Now, at the time of this order, those individuals were on airplanes, right? They were in the air. And Trump said, well, look, we're not doing anything until your written order comes down. They were in the middle of a hearing. They were on an airplane, having been spirited out of the United States by the government before they could vindicate their due process rights by contesting their removability in federal court as the law requires. Now, did you read any of that in the Supreme Court? Vindicate their due process rights by contesting their removability in a federal court as the law requires, right? They got notice and an opportunity. Notice, opportunity. We just read it. But he's kind of reframing it as though they should have an actual contest, like they all should have a hearing. Now, rather than comply, and they sued, by the way. This is like what this case is here. They did get notice and they did sue. Now, they sued in a fake jurisdiction in this judge's courtroom, and then this judge probably stole the case from other courts so that he could come in there and muck this up. Now, rather than comply with the court's order, writes Judge Boasberg, Babyberg, says the government continued the hurried removal operation. Early on Sunday morning, hours after my order, it transferred 2 plane loads of passengers that were protected by the TRO into a Salvadorian mega prison called CONTEMPT. Shout out to the heroes working down there. Now, as this opinion will detail, and by the way, right, this was They were removed. Trump's position is they were removed, ED, past tense at this time. They were not being removed or going to be removed. They had been removed. The airplane was up and gone. Once that happened, there is no jurisdiction, Judge, anymore. So this judge, now, we just read the SCOTUS opinion. I know we read that before, but I wanted to frame it out just so you can see how insane this is. Says, as this opinion will detail, now we're asking, how does this judge have any basis to even argue this? The court ultimately determines that the government's actions on that day demonstrate a willful disregard for its order that he had no jurisdiction over. Sufficient for the court to conclude that probable cause exists to find the government in criminal contempt. Now, the court does not reach that conclusion lightly or hastily. Indeed, it has given Trump ample opportunity to rectify or explain their actions to him because he's the president now. He is in charge of foreign policy and expulsions, and he executes the law. Because Trump was in the middle of executing the law, and he said, no, I'm in charge now, bring him back. None of their responses, he says, have been satisfactory. Now, one might nonetheless ask, which we do, how this inquiry into compliance is able to proceed at all. Yeah, it's a great question. Given that the Supreme Court vacated the TRO, right, as we just read, vacated multiple times, vacated, no jurisdiction, habeas Texas, after the events in question. Well, he says, I don't really care. That court's, the Supreme Court's later determination that the TRO that I wrote suffered from a legal defect, however, does not excuse the government's violation. So you understand, the TRO was legally improper, but you still had to follow my order anyways, right? Instead, it is a foundational legal precept that every judicial order must be obeyed, no matter how erroneous it may be, until a court reverses it, because we don't want lawlessness here. And he's citing Walker versus City of Birmingham, right? U.S. Supreme Court case 1967. Now, if a party chooses to disobey the order rather than to wait for it to be reversed via the judicial process, such disobedience is punishable as contempt, notwithstanding any later revealed deficiencies in the order. Now, I'm not real sure here. I'm not sure what this case is, but it looks like Walker versus City of Birmingham. So we have to look that case up to see what it is. But I don't know if that is a judge challenging a president in that case. Don't think so, because I don't think this has come up before. So I don't know what the judges say. Well, look at this case. The Supreme Court has decided a very similar thing. Really? Has that happened before? Where the Supreme Court has issued, because I don't think so. I'm not exactly sure what that case is in 1967, but it sounds like the city of Birmingham was involved, not the executive branch of the federal government. So I think it might be a little bit of a case that's not exactly in parallel. So maybe not exactly a good comparison. Now, that foundational rule of law answers not just how this compliance inquiry can proceed. So it's not about his illegal order. It's about, or how he stole the case when it got assigned through the calendars, but it's about why it must be. It's about compliance. Now, I ordered you to turn the planes around. You didn't turn the planes around. Even though my order was illegal, you still should have turned them around. You didn't, and now you're in trouble. The rule reflects a belief in the fair administration of justice that no man can be his own judge, right? Because you don't want people to say, well, I think the judge is wrong, so I'm just going to do whatever I'm going to do. But in most of those cases, that person is not the president of the United States. You understand? That's my point here with this other case that they're citing. Was Walker a United States president? I'm not real sure. Was the city of Birmingham a United States president? I don't think so. I don't think that happened. So I think the judge is kind of saying, look, like if you're a regular old Rob Schmob, and I say, you know, a judge issues old Rob an order and says, you got to do this thing. And I say, well, you're going to lose on appeal, judge. And I'm going to appeal and win. And I'm going to find that your order is bad. I can't just go act like the order is bad. I got to wait for the Court of Appeals to come back and reverse the judge. I can't just go do the thing or, you know, whatever I was prohibited from doing until it's reversed. But this is a co-equal branch of government. Has the Supreme Court ruled on that? I'm not so sure, especially given the fact that they just said that your order was legally defective. Why should a co-equal branch of government follow your legally defective order? That's insane. Obviously, that's not going to happen. They're co-equal. Now, the Constitution, he says, does not tolerate willful disobedience of judicial orders, especially by officials of a coordinate branch who have sworn an oath to uphold it. Yeah, it's not really a coordinate branch as much as it is a co-equal branch. Like, they don't have to coordinate with you and facilitate all this stuff with you. If you are in violation, and this is a lower level inferior district court judge out of Washington, D.C. The Supreme Court did not tell him anything that this judge is saying they did. So it's not willful disobedience of a judicial order. It's lawful enforcement of his constitutional power. You understand? And that deserves the same merit as your allegations here. So if anything, it's a 50-50 unless the Supreme Court tells him to do something. And he didn't. The Supreme Court said, you were wrong, Judge Boasberg. Your order was legally defective. You even admitted it in your own little whiny baby brief here. To permit such officials to freely annul the judgments of the courts would not just destroy the rights of those acquired under those judgments, it would make a mockery of the Constitution itself. That's rich coming from this guy. So a fatal result must be deprecated by all, right? Again, this, I would argue, yeah, sure, should definitely apply to a regular person. The president issued a proclamation. It's a presidential proclamation, and it's under an act that was codified by Congress. So this judge is saying that his little crap order is more powerful than a proclamation issued by the president, duly elected by the American people, that's also supported by an act passed by Congress. It's lunacy. Now, he says, you can see, this is what we call cope, because he's writing the rest of this will all be about how he wants to say this stuff. This first section is like, I really can't say this stuff. I shouldn't say this stuff, but I'm going to hold this in my jurisdiction because I'm just mad at you because you didn't follow my legally defective order. Legal defect. My TRO suffered from a legal defect. Yep, that's right. So he says, as just noted, the injunction in question was issued March 15th. Things were moving at a breakneck speed because he's screaming about the government, saying that their apparent effort to remove individuals more quickly than the judicial proceedings in which it was actively participating could keep pace, whatever that means. So he says, see generally. Okay, well, I'd like you to specify that. We don't want a general reference because Trump was moving people expeditiously out of the country because that's what the American people elected him to do. Saying the day prior, Trump had seemingly signed, but not yet made public, a proclamation. We know all about it. He announced that Tren de Aragua are gangbangers and they need to go, saying Tren is working with Nicolas Maduro from Venezuela. So the proclamation was not published until 3:53, and they had begun acting based on these removals earlier. Early March, the government interrogated Venezuelans in its custody about Tren de Aragua, moved them to Texas. Now, the reason for staging them there became clear on Saturday. It's because they're going to move them out. Amazing. It's great to read this stuff. It says, early that morning, when the signed proclamation was still hours from being disclosed to the public, so I think that's like his notice. He's saying like, that's the notice. The government reportedly loaded scores of illegal Venezuelans onto the buses, drove them to the nearby airport, and began putting them onto airplanes. Now, as the planes sat on the tarmac, officials refused to answer questions about the deportees' questions about where they would be taken. You're leaving, yeah. You don't need to know that. It's operational security. Sorry. Among those queued on the tarmac or placed onto the planes were the 5 plaintiffs in the lawsuit. So they did get notice and they sued. Apparently catching wind of the proclamation, because what does that mean? Like, you don't know? Sounds like they got notice. Catching wind. What is that, Judge? You should define that if you're going to hold a president in contempt. After apparently catching wind, maybe they got notice. Maybe Trump said, hey, we're signing a proclamation. You're going to be leaving soon. They called a lawyer and they got notice and opportunity, which is in total compliance of the law, right? That is very sloppy language from a federal judge who's issuing a contempt order against the president. They filed suit at 1:12 a.m. on Saturday. All these lawyers with these immigration entities are just flush with cash from the last administration, and they're just chomping at the bit to fight for their constituency, which are foreigners, illegals, just to be clear. Before the buses left El Valle and then moved for a TRO preventing their removal, the judge granted that, right? In addition, they asserted The proclamation is illegal. At around 8 a.m., Boasberg says, this court learned that it had drawn the case through the court's random assignment system. Yeah, right. Chambers then reached out to locate government counsel. Less than an hour later, their counsel told us that one plaintiff was aboard a flight. The lawyers are right. He's on board. But I couldn't hear from the government. And so there were exigent circumstances, the judge says. And so I needed to freeze the plane in place without knowing anything about who's on the plane, what's going on, nothing. Just listen to some lawyer, said my client's on airplane. The judge said, so what I had to do is enter an ex parte TRO. What that means is Trump never even had a say. The American people never had a say in this at all. The judge just heard from an illegal person's lawyer who was already determined to be by the executive branch on illegal. Tren de Aragua member was getting out of our country. The judge took their word for it and stopped Trump from doing it. Not long after the TRO, government informed Chambers that, okay, we sent everybody the TRO. Now, sure enough, several of the named plaintiffs were abruptly removed from the planes, saying that they were able to remove people from the planes and things happened quickly, right? The judge is saying, I told you to get those 5 off the planes, you got them off. So then at 10:15 in an email thread, including Chambers and other counsel for the government, the gangbanger lawyers asked the court to hold an emergency hearing for everybody, certify a class of gangbangers across America. The judge said, yes, love to. Comprising them, they issued a TRO covering the whole class. So now Trump was enjoined across the entire country by a federal judge. Incredible. Shortly after the proclamation then jumped up on the website, then they have informed the Chambers, the DOJ, or the gangbanger lawyers. They said, there are 2 flights that are being operated this afternoon, and they're going to take off with 5 of our clients on there, and there's other people on the class, okay, because they want to keep them here. The government offered no response. So then there was a 5 p.m. hearing because this judge is like, we have to keep these people here. The court clarified the scope of the TRO and then said, well, yeah, we should certify the class. The court said, Judge, you don't have any venue here. They can only file in habeas in Texas. You can't even hear this case. The judge said, well, now I'm curious about imminent deportation. Are there any removals that are going to be happening in the next 24 to 48 hours? Government lawyers for Trump came back and they said, well, we're going to investigate and report this. And then the other gangbanger lawyers, they said, well, we've got various sources who say that the 2 removal flights are going to leave soon and they may have already taken off. They've got people scouting the airways. The court adjourned and the government was still in the process of removing people. Now, they learned the government was. Although the government has refused to provide particular details, all evidence suggests that during the short window the court was adjourned, 2 removal planes took off, right? The judge issued an oral order. They said, court's over. All right, take off. Until he issues the written order, we're good. So they say the judge got flight tracking data and everything. 5:25, 5:45, 3-minute video posted of El Salvador and others. Now, those later discovered flight movements were obscured from the court because the government said it still had no flight details to share. And they said, well, we're not going to give you the operational details of this, Judge. This is ridiculous. This is raising national security concerns, Your Honor. We're not going to share this with you or anybody. The judge said, well, why don't you show me in chambers? So the court arranged for that. It disconnected the public line and asked the government to give us this info. He said, no, sorry, not going to. We can give you the information eventually, but I don't have it now. Oh, you mean like now? No, don't have anything for you now, Judge. Sorry. So with the growing realization then that the government might be rapidly dispatching removal flights and try to evade judicial review, the court turned to the pending legal issues. And we determined, the court said, that venue is proper. I can hear this case and I can certify a class covering all the gang members. And so then the question is about the TRO for the entire class. And they went through the full hearing. The judge said in the hearing, at 6:45 p.m., the court delivered an oral command. He said, I am issuing a TRO. All right, listen, Trump people, you must inform your clients of the order immediately and notify them that if class members of gang members, this judge has a class of gang members that is going to take off or is in the air, those people need to be returned to the United States. And that order was legally defective, according to the judge. He explained it above. However, that's accomplished Whether turning around a plane or not disembarking anyone on the plane, I leave to you. But this is something you need to make sure is complied with immediately, right? This judge is in control, literally, of a foreign operation right now. In a hearing. Turn it around. The hearing adjourned at 6:53. Then 30 minutes later, the court came out and wrote a TRO, a written order. That was at 30 minutes later, about 7:25. The court referenced the just concluded hearing and said, don't remove class members and gang members. But despite the court's written order and oral command spelling out what was required for compliance, the government did not stop the removal. According to the defendants, Trump says 2 planes took off during the adjournment. They departed U.S. airspace before the court's 6:45 oral command and landed abroad sometime after the written minute order. Okay, so they were in the air before you told us anything, Judge. A third flight took off at 7:36 after the written order, but the government maintains that everybody on that plane were removed pursuant to other authorities, the independent source power that is not just the proclamation that Trump issued under the AEA. Now, the first 2 planes, those carrying members of the gangbanger class covered by the TRO, apparently touched down in Honduras at 7:37 and 8:10, remained there for several hours before taking off again for El Salvador. And we thought about that, right? Little piddly jump, right? Pop down, pop back up. They didn't want to talk about that because that's operational security. Honduras might take flack for that. After the planes landed in El Salvador shortly after midnight, most of the passengers were apparently transferred into one of that country's prisons known as CONTEMPT. Coolest place, definitely this year, maybe this decade. But not all passengers, it seems. One Venezuelan woman swears in a declaration that she was on one of the flights that landed in El Salvador, but was flown back along with 7 other women because the Salvadorian authorities refused to accept female prisoners. So the judge is like, oh, you could have brought him back. Her account is corroborated by another declaration from another Nicaraguan man, who says he was also aboard one of the flights and returned alongside the women because they would not take custody of Central American nationals like him. Interesting. Now, by mid-Sunday morning, the picture of what happened came into clear focus. It appears, says Judge Boasberg, that the government had transferred members of the gang class into El Salvador's custody hours after our injunction here prohibited their deportment under the proclamation, which was an illegal injunction with a legal defect. Worse, boasts by Trump intimated that they had defied the court's order deliberately and gleefully. In fact, it's Rubio retweeted a post in which above the news headline, he reposted a tweet from Nayib Bukele when Nayib said, oopsie, too late. They're not coming back. And he put the laughing face emoji. Man, shout out to Nayib. We appreciate him. Hopefully he issues an injunction against this judge. Oopsie, too late. Judge didn't like that. Says a filing submitted by the defendants on Sunday afternoon failed to dispel any concerns that you had flouted my injunction. So I set a hearing. Now, the court expected that at that hearing that Trump might explain why, despite appearances otherwise, none of the people on the first 2 flights was a member of the gangbanger class, or at worst, that Trump would admit to a grave mistake, explain how it transpired, or detail plans to rectify it. Like Trump was going to come in and say, well, no, we're sorry, we didn't do that, or all that. No, they're not going to. They were lawfully deported. The United States took neither tack. Yeah, they don't care. Rather, what followed in the ensuing days was an increasing obstructionism from Boasberg. He said, on the part of the government, it refused to answer basic questions about what happened, questions that were all ultimately in service of resolving one key fact. Did members of the gang class, that is non-citizens who were removable solely on the basis of the proclamation, were transferred out of U.S. custody after I said no in my illegal TRO with a legal defect? Such stonewalling started before the Monday hearing, and just before it was set to begin, they sought to cancel this. They said, you can't come in. This is executive branch authority. We're not going to answer any of these questions. We're a co-equal branch of government. How dare you? Nowhere in their filing, says the judge, did they dispute that class members were transferred after the injunction was issued, in the written injunction. Instead, they set forth, the judge is not happy, several hyper-technical legal arguments, right? Why? In spite of the fact that they complied. And they said, no, well, they were already in the air. They were already outside of American airspace. They took off after your oral order, but before your written order, and the written order controls. And they cited law. Like, they didn't just make this up. They're like, well, it has to be a written injunction, so we know exactly what to do. Like, it's very clear. We don't want kind of cobbled together, off the cuff, just winging it from the bench type of TROs. That's ridiculous. We need clarity. So what does the written order say? Oh, they got the order. Okay, no more flights. But the judge doesn't like that. Says those arguments are unconvincing then, and they remain so now. And then, the judge writes, in the hearing itself, the government refused to provide any relevant facts. The lawyer the government sent to the proceeding, conveniently not the counsel who had appeared at the hearing, repeatedly stated in some form or another that he said this, well, Your Honor, I'm not at liberty to disclose anything about any flights. Although he would not say such information was even classified, he claimed that it could not be shared, even ex parte. The judge, he wouldn't even show it to me. No, not even you. Because of diplomatic concerns, national security, and more. Now, that is, the government maintained it could not share any details about the flights, even privately with the court. Because, and that is despite the fact that that day, Rubio retweeted a 3-minute video that portrayed a host of operational details. And even Trump retweeted that. High definition video. It was a great video. All these Tren Aragua gangbangers running around. Ah! The video displayed the planes and the runway where they parked, how migrants were restrained and transported, the faces and uniforms, and more. And the vehicles, all inside the prison. Well, that's in El Salvador, but that's their videos, and that's our, that's the release into their country. We're talking about our operations in the handoff to them. But anyways, on Monday evening, the court ordered the government to submit another filing the next day, seeking to accommodate their national security concerns. Oh, well, if it's national security, let's do this. Vague as they were, yet nonetheless needing answers on how the members of the gang member class had been transferred into a foreign prison. I still want answers. How'd they get in there? The court directed the government to explain its position from Trump on whether and in what form it will provide answers to the court. But then nothing came. On March 18th, Trump reiterated their various arguments for why they should not share information. They said, we're not going to do it. But the court ordered them to. By noon the next day, I want 5 questions answered. 1, when did the flights take off? When did they leave airspace? When they land in a foreign country? What time? And blah, blah, blah. Now, then they reverse course entirely, Trump. On Wednesday morning, the 19th, a few hours before their deadline, they asked for a stay. Now, most relevant, they asserted for the first time that they're going to invoke state secrets. Now, the court was unsure of how any of these questions would actually jeopardize state secrets because they shared public flights and montage videos, but we gave them another day to answer the questions. But then the government came back again and evaded all its obligations. It doesn't have obligations to you. It's a co-equal branch of government. You're not the president. Rather than invoke the privilege or answer the questions, it submitted a short declaration from this person saying, well, we're still, he says, it is my understanding that we're talking about invoking this privilege. Judge lost it. This was wholly inadequate. This was a low-level official. You sent somebody to my courtroom without any actual knowledge about anything. So we required a declaration from the cabinet. And then, boom, they invoked it. State secrets. So then the court held a hearing. Now, in parallel to this, there were other items happening about the TRO. And what happened was, after briefing, the court denied Trump's motion to vacate the TROs, saying that the gangbang lawyers would have a chance of success. The Court of Appeals rejected that. Then it went to the Supreme Court. So now the Supreme Court then subsequently vacated the TROs, right? This is the judge saying the Supreme Court reversed me. I issued the TROs and they deleted them. They vacated them. But he says it was on a narrow ground. It held that challenges to removal under the Act, Alien Enemies Act, must be brought through habeas, not through the APA. And so venue is not in the District of Columbia. So what are you doing with this case, Judge? You wrote it down. While the court split on the venue question, it unanimously held, as this court did when declining to dissolve the TROs, that those subject to removal must be allowed to challenge their removability in federal court before being deported. They were, and they did. They must be allowed an opportunity. They leave that word out, right? Allowed to challenge. You just reread it. It's allowed an opportunity to challenge. Okay, and they got that. Now, specifically, all justices agreed that due process requires the government to give reasonable time to actually seek habeas. They did. They included habeas in the petition to you, Boasberg. In holding as much, the court effectively said that the Constitution flatly prohibits the government from doing exactly what it did that Saturday. No, it doesn't at all. That is such a ridiculous jump and a leap. Why do you have to say that? Just quote them if that's what they said. You don't have to translate it for them, Judge Boasberg. We're not morons. They wrote what they meant. Just put it in there. They did seek habeas relief. They sued. You're hearing the case. They had plenty of opportunity. And that's what the Supreme Court said. Here, we have it queued up. Opportunity. Notice and opportunity. Hopefully, I underlined it, right? Entitled to notice and opportunity to be heard that's appropriate to the nature of the case, which is immigration and deportation and Tren de Aragua and presidential powers under the AEA. So they're now perverting notice and opportunity to be heard in an appropriate manner into somehow judicial trials with lawyers provided indefinitely until the end of time. It's ridiculous what this judge is doing. That's not what they said. When it secretly loaded people onto planes, it didn't. Kept many of them in the dark about their destination and raced to spirit them away before they could invoke their due process rights. It's ridiculous. It's not true at all. They got notice, even before they got more notice than the rest of the public did. And they filed lawsuits. It's like it's the judge is overlooking the arguments that undermine his argument in his own brief, in his own memo. It's wild. As this opinion will shortly explain, the fact that the Supreme Court determined that this TRO suffered from a venue defect does not affect, let alone moot, the compliance inquiry presently teed up here. So to be ultra clear, this judge is admitting we are in the wrong court. We are in the wrong venue. There is a venue defect, but I issued an illegal TRO that has since been vacated because I didn't have the power to do that because we're in the wrong building. And my illegal TRO was not complied with by a co-equal branch of government under the Alien Enemies Act, which is when the president is at the apex of their power and is going to continue a contempt proceeding. It is the most illegitimate thing you could imagine. Now, they're going to give us some analysis, and we'll fast forward through a lot of this, but they say they provide no convincing reason to show us anything differently. Trump deliberately flouted this court's illegal written order and separately its oral command that explicitly delineated what compliance entailed. Now, they don't dispute that it was hours after the written order was issued when they disembarked the other class members. Just call them gang members, okay? Class members. They're gang members aboard the two planes and transferred them out of custody. But rather than offer a mea culpa, an attempt to explain this grave error, according to this judge, in his illegal order, and detail plans to rectify it, defendants offer various imaginative arguments for why they nevertheless technically complied with the order. None of their positions withstand scrutiny. So it's like this guy tried to, beat his spouse or something, and now he's trying to make Trump apologize. I'm going to beat you with an illegal order, like Kilmar did to his wife a couple times, and then we'll make you and her apologize for getting the beating. It's insane times. But they say that their core contention, saying that in prohibiting class members' removal, the written order barred only their physical exit from the United States, not their transfer to El Salvador. Once they're on the airplane and outside of America, they're gone. But they say that's not what I said. Their other arguments are trying to retroactively attack the legal validity of the injunction, and their conduct manifests a willful disregard of my legally binding order. And so, given the evidence here, and without any response from them, I find Judge Boasberg that there is probable cause that Trump and the administration acted contemptuously. The following analysis sets forth the parameters of criminal contempt and explains why my order, even if they're not valid, okay, explain why court orders, regardless of their ultimate validity, must be complied with. So every time you hear the liberals saying, well, Trump is violating a court order, you can say the judge admitted his order was illegitimate. It was not valid. It was reversed by the Supreme Court. He's admitting it. But you have to comply with it anyways. And that standard might apply to a regular old Joe Schmo, not a co-equal branch of government that's acting under power codified and granted via Congress. The court last analyzes why the willful and knowing actions, it's not a defendant, it's a president, constitute probable cause for findings of contempt. So legal standards, he's going to say 1789, the Judiciary Act established by Congress says what courts can do, and they can punish contempt. The authority is now codified 18 U.S. Code 401. The court here is asking, is there probable cause that they violated that statute? Now, an inquiry does not appear to be strictly necessary. The statute does not include a probable cause requirement, and the DOJ has explained a bunch of other technical stuff too. But hold on, says the judge. Trump protests, saying, if the Supreme Court has vacated the TROs, how can I even have power? Well, the Supreme Court already answered that question long time ago in Walker, saying that means that a party may be punished for contempt for disobedience of an order later set aside on appeal for being defective. And once again, we'll have to look these cases up, but he's not giving us much background on these. Were these against the president, doing the president's constitutional job, acting under power and color of Congress? The so-called collateral bar rule enforces that principle. So in other words, even though my TRO, right, even though the TRO was legally unsound, it's no obstacle to a contempt conviction. And so he can still get you on contempt. There are only two exceptions to this rule, neither one which applies here. An enjoined party can challenge this and more, but they identify no reason that the transfer had to occur. Right? Why did you move them off the airplanes? You could have kept them on the plane and brought them back with those other ladies. Now, second, a party need not obey an injunction if it is transparently invalid or only had a frivolous pretense to validity. Huh, there you go. That's it. It was transparently invalid. The Supreme Court said it was. That is an exceedingly high bar. This narrow carve-out does not apply if the order was arguably proper or had any pretense to validity at the time it was issued. No, this is great. The Supreme Court has held that plaintiff's claim should have been brought in habeas, but this court's view of the issue was not patently frivolous. Yeah, it was. You even told them to get rid of the habeas claim so you could keep the rest of the APA claims. You knew what you were doing. It's not patently frivolous. It's actively malicious, which is worse. Rather, the question was substantial, dividing both the Court of Appeals and others, whatever. To be sure, some courts outside this circuit have suggested that when you lack jurisdiction, an enjoined party may raise that fact as a defense to contempt. But there's a lot more case law that he analyzes for us. In any event, I have jurisdiction. No, you don't. Recall the Supreme Court held in its opinion that claims challenging removal must be brought in habeas. That was in a line of cases where habeas is the exclusive remedy. But I think there's more here. In fact, here, when I issued my class-wide TRO, it did not hold that this court lacked subject matter jurisdiction. And at worst, they said venue's improper, but they didn't say jurisdiction. So if we're in the wrong building, fine, but I can still keep jurisdiction over the orders and the claims. So this is this judge essentially admitting his order was crap. It has been vacated. He didn't have the power to issue it, but they should have followed his order, his illegal order anyways. The upshot is that after the Supreme Court decision in this case, it has been preliminarily determined that Congress channeled the challenge to removal under the AEA into habeas. This court's decision to recognize a cause of action there under the APA in DC, while ultimately erroneous, therefore is not a defect that would excuse compliance under any recognized exceptions. Okay, so Trump had to follow the order even though it was illegal and reversed. And he says this was a very clear and specific and unequivocal order. I told you, turn the airplanes around. I told you 5 times, turn them around. You understood what it meant. Across a couple of paragraphs, you try to squeeze this in somewhere, calling this a predatory incursion or an invasion. But all of that undercuts your position. Lots of details here saying anyone paying attention to the hearing could have known that the ultimate action that they sought was the discharge into foreign hands. You knew what they wanted. There was an opening exchange at the hearing. He says, we don't want people to be removed. Second, there was a recurring discussion about equitable jurisdiction. So he's like saying, you guys knew what they wanted. So don't play dumb. At the middle of the hearing, their lawyer interjected saying, planes and my sources on the ground are saying they're going to take off. And we explained this many times throughout the hearings. The government understood the black letter principle that we had jurisdiction and should have followed the orders. But this is an egregious case of cherry picking, where Trump selectively quotes only a fragment of my response here to mischaracterize my position, suggesting the court acknowledged that it lacked jurisdiction once they left airspace. But that's not right. You forgot what I said. I said, right, sure. I mean, once they're out of the country, I'm not sure what I can do there. But that doesn't admit anything. It ignores my prior references saying, put them back on the plane, and my oral command. So don't act like I didn't tell you what you should do. These exchanges on jurisdiction, where the court was both the audience, demonstrate that they do have jurisdiction, and I issued oral and written rulings, and I memorialized them in writing. From this command alone, it was clear and unequivocal that you cannot remove these people from territories of the United States, but you did. You landed in Honduras and then in El Salvador. If the injunction only prevented their exit from airspace, then I wouldn't have explained anything about the plane or talked about the plane landing or anything, but I did. And so in sum, Trump, numerous exchanges throughout the hearing, including the ultimate unequivocal oral command that clarified how to obey me, demonstrate that legal deportation was complete when he left custody. You could have picked the planes up and brought him back. There's no convincing explanation why, after I gave you an emphatic oral command, you couldn't make an abrupt U-turn in the 30-minute window. Turn those planes around. The only objective, reasonable expectation would have been to have done that. You didn't do that. And so this is a violation. Now, you don't dispute that you did move people after the order, at least the oral order, was issued. But now you're just trying to create legal arguments to attack the validity of the order itself. You say it's separation of powers and more. But this is a sweeping assertion. They say once they're out of U.S. airspace, it's not ours anymore. And this is not a valid claim, says the judge. Even if your theory of Article 2 power were sound, it doesn't help with contempt. So maybe I couldn't have stopped you from doing the thing that you didn't do because it was illegal, but now I'm going to investigate you for not doing that thing. Now, even if your Article 2 argument could be construed as something other than a collateral attack, there's no merit to the contention that the U.S. airspace matters and more. Now, even when the Supreme Court has found that a statute does not apply, it also undercuts Trump. And this is this judge continuing to cope away. So we'll just fast forward through this. Now, we also saw, Rule 65D, saying they didn't give us a clear explanation under Rule 65D. 65C, I think, was the one about the injunction bond. And they're citing other cases on collateral attacks. But we'll fast forward through all of that. Now, having determined all of that other facts, we now have to ask whether this was done with willfulness. Did Trump intend to do this willfully? Well, yes. From the opening hours of Saturday, the government conducted and their conduct betrayed a desire to outrun the judiciary. Hustling gang members to an airport before the proclamation was bad enough. But the decision to launch the planes was even worse. The government knew as of the morning that the court would hold a hearing on whether anyone in its custody could be removed, but it still rushed people to get them out of our country. Now they're trying to muddy the waters. At no point on Saturday evening, not even when the court delivered the oral command, did the government even hint or do anything to try to reverse this. And this is telling. The government was in regular contact with Chambers and they knew what they were doing. They had an opportunity to avoid noncompliance and bring them back, but they didn't. And so, taken all together, this behavior, writes Judge Boasberg, Democrat super judge, indicates deliberate or reckless disregard of the order, which was vacated and illegal. It was unlawful, leading this court to conclude that there is probable cause that they willfully obeyed a binding judicial decree from an inferior court against the co-equal branch of government. Judge writes, okay, so now what? What are the next steps? What's going to happen? Of course, the question we're all asking. The court last details the next steps that these proceedings may take if Trump complies. First, before initiating any criminal contempt proceedings, courts typically allow the contumacious, contemptuous party an opportunity to purge its contempt and remedy its violation by obeying the court order voluntarily. You better obey President Boasberg now, or else. Saying the most obvious way for Trump to do that is here to assert custody of the individuals who were removed in violation of the gang member class certification TRO, so that they might avail themselves of their right to challenge their removability through a habeas proceeding. And they've already had this opportunity, just to be clear. How do we know that? Well, we're in court. The people on the airplane found lawyers and sued. That's why we're reading this memo right now. So they absolutely had a time to do all of that. The judge wants them to have another hearing, because that's the point. If you can give Democrats or illegals, Democrats want to give them multiple hearings until they get the outcome that they want, which is to stay in America and not have any immigration deportations at all. So per the terms of the TRO, the government would not need to release any of those individuals, nor would it need to transport them back to the homeland. The court will also give them an opportunity to propose other methods of coming into compliance with which the court will evaluate. So I guess you just have to allow them to file, avail themselves of their right, asserting custody of them, and allow them to file a petition in Texas or something. In the event that they do not choose to purge their contempt, the court will proceed to identify the individuals responsible for the contumacious conduct by determining whose specific act or omission caused the non-compliance. So who did it specifically? At the suggestion of the government in the last hearing, the court will begin by requiring declarations. Now, should those be unsatisfactory, the court will proceed to either hearings with live witness testimony, okay, Rubio, under oath, or to depositions conducted by the gangbanger lawyers. The next step would be for the court, pursuant to the federal rules of criminal procedure, to request that the contempt be prosecuted by an attorney for the government, which is Trump's attorney. If the government declines or the interest of justice requires, the court will appoint another attorney to prosecute the contempt, a special prosecutor. Now, finally, a note on Trump's invocation of the state secret privilege, which permits the government to prevent the disclosure on national security grounds. They invoke this privilege as a ground for not providing certain details that could maybe make foreign countries not want to work with us. Rubio said that. They also add there's no need for any information in this case under the rules. But judicial review of state secrets is circumscribed, but it's not non-existent, okay? So we can't normally look at everything, but we can look at some things. Their claim is to be afforded the utmost deference, and the court must evaluate whether there is reasonable danger that compulsion of the evidence will compel military matters and more. But the court doubts Trump, saying it's doubtful that the privilege applies here. It's not inquiring into the diplomatic arrangements that facilitated the flights, nor the operational specifics of the transported gang members. Instead, the court is simply seeking to confirm times and numbers, how many passengers the two flights carried, whether they were all deported pursuant to the proclamation, whether they were transferred out of custody. Now, the court is skeptical, Boasberg, that such information rises to the level of a state secret. As noted, the government has widely publicized details of the flight on X and elsewhere, and so there are snippets out there. So if they can see it, I can see it. And they still have not asserted that the information is even classified or privileged, nor is the court persuaded that even if we publicly disclosed it, that it would harm state secrets at all. So at this point in the contempt inquiry, however the information at issue is not necessary to proceed, the court will not resolve that until it's warranted. But as we conclude, finally, Judge Boasberg writes, for the foregoing reasons, the court will find probable cause that the Trump administration and everyone listed here and their actions constitute contempt. How dare you not follow my illegal order that was vacated by the Supreme Court because I have no jurisdiction at all. It will provide them an opportunity to purge that contempt as soon as Trump exercises custody over them, I guess without bringing them back to the homeland. If they opt not to do so, the court will identify the contemnors and refer the matter for prosecution of crimes. A separate order so stating will issue this day, signed by James Boasberg. And it sounds like a giant hissy fit to me personally. I mean, they're going to appoint a special prosecutor, special counsel, whatever. But what stops, if anything, President Trump from just pardoning everybody? Judge says during contempt, we're going to hold contempt proceedings and appoint another Jack Smith, whatever. No one cares. They can call Rubio in for depots, call everybody. You're all pardoned. You're not contempt. There's no contempt anymore. You're just done. So do it again. And if the American people are unhappy with that, and I don't think that they will be, then they can just impeach President Trump if they want to do that. But I forgot they don't control either house either. So not really going to work out for them there either. So my point is, this feels a little bit masturbatory from this judge. He's just writing this big copy, mopey screed about why he can do this, even though he can't do this. And he's coping throughout this many times over. Almost sounded like Beryl Howell's update we read last week, where it sounded like she had a little couple too many glasses of wine. But this, of course, will be appealed aggressively. And this judge, I think, is going to run into a brick wall. Remember how much weight Trump threw around when he was not the president in all of the court cases? He was like skidding the line with contempt all the time. Areola Engeron, the NIP judge, was threatening him. Judge Merchan held him in contempt a number of times, and he wasn't even the president. Now he's the president. But Stephen Cheung, who, of course, is over with the director of communications division in the White House, said this: we plan to seek immediate appellate relief immediately. The president is 100% committed to ensuring that terrorists and criminal illegal migrants are no longer a threat to Americans and their communities across the country. So we'll be looking forward to that appeal. We're sure the notice of appeal will be skidding in there soon. We're going to keep our eye on this one because Judge Boasberg is throwing a little bit of a hissy fit over there and now demanding Trump explain why he didn't comply with an illegal TRO. And he wants, by the way, the TRO to be effectuated, right? In order to comply with the purging of the contempt, he has to basically effectuate the TRO by bringing them back, which was vacated. And there's no evidence that they did not get notice and opportunity, which is what the Supreme Court said, during their deportation. So everything Trump did was by the book. It is now time for Congress to kick things into high gear with this dude's impeachment and the rest of them. And we'll be looking forward to that soon from the Judiciary Committee and Jim Jordan and the rest of them. All right. And so good update there, my friends. Thanks for hanging with us through that long read. We've got a bunch more to get to. We're just warming up here. And next up, we're talking about Kilmar Abrego, wife beater Garcia. And so we got that segment queued up right now. The Kilmar hoax comes crashing down. A really rough day for the MS-13 gangbanger lovers. Kilmar, we are now learning much more about, including from some documents intimating that this guy had some past domestic violence crimes. This was reported over from Andy NGO in a shocking turn of events, because we had been hearing for years now, or months now, that Kilmar was an innocent person, a loving father who just wanted to care for his family in America. In fact, this is what they posted over on their GoFundMe. Look, what a happy family. Don't see any black eyes on her, although the face does look a little bit of puffiness, but maybe that's just some swelling from the last one. But they posted this. They're trying to raise money for this dude. $169,000 for Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia's family. And she writes, saying, Kilmar is an excellent father. He's always been there for our 3 children, and I think only one of them is biologically his. And get the point. And all their needs. 2 of them are on the autism spectrum, ages 5 and 9, hopefully not from the beatings. And our 3rd has epilepsy, maybe from the beatings, age 10. Kilmar has been the main provider of our household and the love of my life for over 7 years. So you can backtrace that. And since our family has been separated, I've been devastated and confused. I lost my life partner. My children lost their father, blah, blah, blah. And devastated due to the unjust family separation. Well, you guys can pick up and go down to El Salvador and go petition for his removal down there. But he's not a citizen here. So they're struggling emotionally. The kid is going to smell his work boots and whatever. And you can see loving family, except not really. Here's what the story is. Andy NGO says, Vanessa Vasquez, okay, the so-called loving wife, the Maryland wife of deported suspect gang terrorist Kilmar Abrego, either lied to the court when she petitioned for a domestic violence protective order against him, or she's lying now. Claiming that he's an excellent father or spouse. Lots of money has come pouring in. They have 1 child together, though Vasquez has misrepresented Garcia as the father of all 3. Not true either, so she's a liar. Garcia was deported to his native El Salvador March 15th, currently is in prison there, and he had requested and gotten a temporary protective order, 2 times, in 2020 and 2021, the wife, Vasquez, requested and received. Okay, so she went into a court and said, I am feeling in danger. I am feeling threatened. Please help me, court. The court granted temporary protective orders against Garcia. Her allegations are that he's dangerous, and violent are consistent with other findings. It all adds up. So here you can see, when we come back to Kilmar, we got the documents that were also dug up. Andy NGO shared this one. Filed 5/5/2021. Case type, domestic violence. Respondent, guess who's there? Kilmar Abrego Garcia. The case, of course, is Jennifer Vasquez versus Kilmar. Domestic violence case. She petitioned for it. She's female. And that was just one incident. There was also another one that popped up, and we saw that Bill Malugin got his hands on some more documents. Showing the same thing. 5/5/2021. Couple more details here. Service looks like it was unserved. They had a hearing. There was a hearing that occurred 5/5/2021. And I've done these hearings. I've walked clients through these hearings and helped them secure these, and I've defended against them being invoked against people. You have to go in there, and in Arizona, you got to generate some sort of a story or some truth or fact about why you feel like your life is in danger. The judge issues an order that says he can't come over, he can't come home, he can't go to your place of work, but you got to demonstrate something. You can't just come in there and say, he's being mean to me. The judge has to meet a standard of harm or danger. So that happened. They had a hearing, and looks like it was granted. Then anticipated method, concluded and held. The hearing occurred. Sheriffs were there, and the whole thing happened. All right, so we had that. Now, in addition to that, Homeland Security released more files. Here's what they look like. So from Homeland, they wrote, Kilmar Abrego Garcia had a history of violence and was not an upstanding Maryland man in any way, shape, or form, like the media has been lying to you about. According to court filings, Garcia's wife sought a domestic violence restraining order against him, claimed he punched, scratched, and ripped off her shirt, among other harm. This MS-13 gang member is not a sympathetic figure. Here is the TRO. This one, petitioned by Jennifer Vasquez, 12/20/1995, against the spouse, married at the time, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Identifying him, left arm, distinguishing features, left arm kid going upstairs is probably the tattoo. Birch Tree out in Maryland. And the court orders the above named respondent, okay, shall not abuse, threaten to abuse, or harass the petitioner or others to be protected. Amazing. And that the above named respondent shall not contact the protected parties by any means. Wow. So it's a no contact order because this dude was beating the crap out of her. The terms of this order shall be effective through 6/17/2021. And let's see when it was ultimately, where's the date on that? Let's see, it might be on the next page. The court orders shall be effective through that. Only the court can change this order. Notice to the respondent, this is to you, Kilmar. You violate this without a warrant, and we believe you violated this, we're going to take you into custody. Federal law has penalties and more fines and other things. So that was the initial document that dropped. Here's more details. After the appearance of the petitioner, okay, so Jennifer Vasquez, Kilmar's wife, shows up to court, they issue the following findings. The court makes the following findings 6/6/2021 is when that date is. Says the current spouse of the respondent is Jennifer Vasquez. She's the person who's eligible for release. Saying they're eligible, the person is eligible for relief, saying there are reasonable grounds to believe the respondent committed the following acts of abuse, right? And we're looking, that's what you're looking for: physical harm, physical violence, physical danger. It occurred on, looks like maybe 5/1, assault in any degree, and the description of the harm. On 5/4, okay, May 4th, 2021, respondent Kilmar punched and scratched his wife, petitioner, ripped off her shirt, grabbed and bruised the petitioner, Vasquez. Yeah. The court lawfully can order the respondent to vacate the home and temporary use and other things. If you're not married, some other things. Now, the respondent shall not abuse her, shall not contact her, shall not enter the residence at Birch Tree Lane, shall stay away from mom's house. Don't go back to mom's house. Shall vacate the home at Birch Tree Lane. Get out of there. Get out of your home. As directed by local law enforcement, and custody of the kid, Kilmar Alexander Abrego Vasquez, is awarded to Jennifer Vasquez until final protective order hearings. Wow. Yeah. I thought he was like an electrician or barber, and like he was just here to improve his life or whatever. It's just a good, honorable person who's a member of a union. All this signed off on by another court and another judge. I don't know if there's a digital signature there or what, but Judge Letitia Renee Allen saying, I certify that Robert Prender is a true form of law. So here, this order is a true, correct copy of the original. All right, so there you go. So clerk of the court and the seal of the court by Robert Prender. So Homeland just released that. Yeah. And the Democrats have been salivating over this dude. Okay. An adjudicated MS-13 gang member who had a trial, had a hearing, lost it, had an appeal, lost it, doesn't show up to court dates when he gets in trouble on the road, also beats his wife such that she goes, not my words, her words, I didn't say it, she did. She went into court, said he beat me, punched me, and bruised me, scratched me, ripped my shirt off. Sounds pretty violent. And has now gotten a TRO. That was just one update. So all of the people who have been screeching about this, bring him back. He's an honorable person. All the senators flying down there, we'll come back to them, should reconsider who they're fighting for. Maybe they should come back and actually fight for Jennifer Vasquez, who is a battered woman who had been abused, it seems like multiple times, such that she has gone and made petitions to the court. Andy NGO said there was another case. Okay, that was the 2021 case. But there was another one, August 30th, 2020. Maybe Homeland will release those files too, so we can see how he was beating her back then. Twice. 2 cases. but they're down there screaming for this dude. So we saw that, and I also came across an interesting note on this. You know, the judge who's handling this case, her name is Judge Xinis, as we've called her. And recall, this is what she looks like. And she is a person who, during her confirmation hearing, was talking about this organization called House of Ruth. So I went back through her confirmation proceedings, and this is the transcript back from when it occurred. And somebody came out and they were, ranting about how great she is. And they said, quite a success story, but Paula Xinis has never forgotten her background, some senator speaking. She is known for her pro bono work for her church members. And as Senator Malusky pointed out, she works at the House of Ruth in a mentoring program. Okay, what is the House of Ruth? Judge Xinis works at. You know what they do and what she mentors on? Oh, domestic violence abuse. Oh, what is abuse? Intimate partner violence is violence by a spouse or partner in an intimate relationship. So why is this judge trying to bring back a domestic abuser into Maryland and not fighting and helping the victim, Jennifer, who's gotten her face beaten in and bruised up? She needs help. She needs salvation, because you can understand she might still be afraid. So we have to liberate her from this toxic relationship. And I'm not sure why the judge is not seeing that. But that is not all. Okay, the hoax continues to shatter. Pam Bondi dropped new documents today. You can see she dropped this saying, we're releasing additional information on Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the hoaxed Maryland man that the Democrats have been salivating over for the last several weeks. And she dropped the gang field interview sheet because one of the narratives has been, there's no evidence that he had any gang affiliation at all, even though we've already read through his trial decision where he did not provide any evidence to rebut the claims that were in this document during the proceeding, and then took it up on appeal and lost the appeal too. So here's what the actual document says. As we know, he was arrested. We saw this report entered by Prince George's County Police Department. This is their gang field interview sheet. They tell us that Abrego Garcia is the subject of this report, March 28, 2019. And we're having Trump in the White House just about to enter the COVID phase. So they're still out mixing and mingling. Now, they tell us about his specs and his demographics, but here's the narrative they tell us. All right, the date is March 28, 2019, 14:27 hours. Detective Redacted is with the Hyattsville City Police Department, observed 4 individuals loitering in the parking lot of the Home Depot located at 3301 East West Highway in Hyattsville, Maryland. As Detective Redacted approached the individuals, 2 of the individuals reached into their waistbands and discarded several unknown items under a parked car. All 4 individuals were stopped by Hyattsville officers. Detective Redacted immediately recognized Christian Hernandez Romero, aka Bimbo, as a member of the MS-13 Sailors Clique. Oh, that guy. Yeah, we know that guy. 2 small plastic bottles containing marijuana were located on scene. All 4 individuals were transported back to District 1 for interviews. Now, member of Prince George County Gang Unit, MS-13 Intelligence Squad, have encountered Christian Hernandez Romero on multiple occasions. He has an extensive criminal history for multiple assaults, concealing dangerous weapons, burglary, and many other criminal offenses. He has also been found guilty of gang participation in the circuit court for Prince George County in December of 2018. And Kilmar, who around the same time, 2020, 2021, as we saw, was also assaulting his wife, according to her. Officers know Hernandez Romero to be an active MS-13 gang member with the Sailors Clique with the rank of Observacion and a moniker of Bimbo. There were 4 dudes there. That was 1. Number 2, officers also interviewed Jose Guillermo Dominguez. During the interview, officers observed tattoos of skulls covering their eyes, ears, and mouth. Officers know these kinds of tattoos are indicative of Hispanic gang culture. The tattoos are meant to represent ver, oír, and callar. See no evil, hear no evil, and say no evil. He also had a tattoo of a devil on his left leg, which officers know only higher-ranking MS-13 gang members are allowed to get a tattoo with the horns on. This represents power within MS-13. Officers made contact with a past proven and reliable source of information who advised Jose Dominguez, saying, yep, he's an active MS-13 gang member. He's with the Sailors clique, and the rank is Chequio. He has the moniker of Maniacio. Now then, officers then got to Kilmar. They got to number 3. Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia. During the interview, officers observed he was wearing a Chicago Bulls hat and had a hoodie with rolls of money covering the eyes, ears, and mouth of the presidents on the separate denomination. Had a hoodie with rolls of money covering the eyes, ears, and mouths of the presidents on the separate denominations. Officers know such clothing to be indicative of Hispanic gang culture. The meaning of the clothing is to represent ver, oír, and callar. See no evil, hear no evil, say no evil. Wearing the Chicago Bulls hat represents that they are a member in good standing with MS-13. Officers contacted a past and proven reliable source of information who advised Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia is an active member of MS-13 with the Westerns clique. The confidential source further advised that he is the rank of Chequeo with the moniker of Chele. And if you think that, well, they just called everybody a gang member, Rob. No, they didn't. Officers also interviewed Jason Joshua Ramirez Herrera. During the interview, the officers were unable to determine his gang affiliation. Not him. Officers know MS-13 gang members are only allowed to hang around other members or prospects for the gang. So officers are going to continue to monitor that dude. For further gang activity, he was sent away without any further incident. Now, here is more. Nationality, El Salvador. No immigration record found, okay, because he's illegal. 23 at the time, at the age. There's his photograph. Claims he's in good health. Alien present without admission or parole. Picked up at the time. Now here, criminal affiliations for him. He has been ID'd as a member and active of MS-13. They checked his records. Nothing came up. He had, oh wow, he had $1,100 on him. That's interesting. That's a nice chunk of change for some 23-year-old dude to have, kind of hanging out with other MS-13 members. He said, someone else wrote, on March 28th, Prince George's County Police Gang Unit made contact with 2 suspected illegal aliens whom they had validated as active MS-13 gang members. ICE ERO officers blank and blank responded to this area. Now, upon arrival, blank met with task force officer Detective blank, and he stated that a subject later identified as Abrego Garcia Kilmar Armando and Dominguez Jose Guillermo, these are his stats, were detained in connection to a murder investigation. What? In connection to a murder investigation, Abrego Kilmar Garcia, blank and W. Allen then approached the subjects and identified themselves as ICE and questioned the subject about their citizenship. Now, the subjects freely admitted being citizens and nationals of El Salvador by birth. They said, we're both here illegally. Yeah, they know. The subjects were not in possession of any immigration documents that would allow them to be here or remain in the U.S. legally. At approximately 1930, the subjects were arrested and transported to the detention center. On March 29, 2019, the subject was transported to Baltimore for processing without incident. Now, he's a citizen. This is 3/28/19. They say he's a citizen and a national of El Salvador. Abrego claims to have walked across the desert for many days, entering illegally back around March 2012. His fingerprints and photographs were entered into the database and returned with ICE and criminal history listed below. He has no immigration history. He got a number as a result of today's apprehension. Now, he has made no claims to us and is amenable to removal under the INA, in that Abrego is an alien present in the United States without being permitted or paroled. He claims to be in good health. He was given an opportunity to make one free phone call. He made a call to so-and-so at so-and-so and talked for 5 minutes. He's not claiming fear of returning to his country. Ha! Whoa! That's amazing. He's not claiming fear of returning to his country. This is Papusa boy. What happened all of a sudden? Oh, he was going to get deported. So he made the Papusa crap up. He's not claiming a fear of returning to El Salvador. What a scam. They are the biggest scammers. Per Prince George's gang unit, they said, look, Abrego Garcia was validated as a member of the Mara Salvatrucha MS-13 gang. Subject was identified as a member of the gang Chequio from the Western Clique, which is a transnational criminal street gang. This information was provided by blank, who has provided truthful, accurate information in the past. Now, he has gang affiliation, and the subject states he has no information about gangs or human trafficking at all. So he was advised of his right to speak with a consular officer of his native country of El Salvador, and he declined. No thanks. Wait, now he is claiming fear of returning to his home country of El Salvador? So we got an inconsistency here. I had to recheck that. He is not claiming fear of returning to his country, but then they said you're getting deported, and then suddenly he is claiming fear. So I'd love to know what that is, right? Why do we have that? Now, a notice to appear is being executed on Abrego Garcia, and he's being removed. So then, okay, he got arrested. Now, I'm not claiming fear. Then suddenly I'm claiming fear, right? So then he got lawyers, right? The lawyers said, we have to keep him here. And that was the appeal. But remember, the bond proceeding came out as follows. So this proceeding looks like, let me just check the date on this. Sorry for all the scrolling. Okay, 5/22/2019. And he was arrested, just to double check the date on that, from Pam Bondi's most recent filing. Where did I go with that one? Here. Oh, that was up here. So 5/22. And when was the arrest? March. Okay. So that makes sense. So about 2 months later, he has the hearing. Arrested March, and we get the bond hearing. And here's what the judge wrote. Said, okay, look, based on all of that was submitted, he's a native and a citizen of El Salvador. They gave him a notice to appear on March 29th. They say he's not a citizen. He's a native and a citizen of El Salvador, arrived at the U.S., unknown place, unknown date, was not admitted or paroled. So he was charged with removability and was held in custody by Homeland. Then he requested a bond redetermination hearing. Said, give me a $5,000 bond. He said, I'm not a flight risk. Just let me out. He asserted that he lived in the United States for 8 years, 2 brothers, legal permanent residents. His fiancée is a citizen, helped raise her 2 children. His fiancée is also 5 months pregnant at the time. Pregnancy is high risk. He stated he failed to appear for hearings and traffic violations, right? Didn't show up to court because he was not aware of those hearings. And he intends to hire an attorney to resolve his traffic proceedings. That's a lie, because you get the ticket when you get pulled over. In addition, unless it's like a parking ticket or something, in addition, which they generally are not too worried about. In addition, the respondent stated that he intends to apply for relief in the form of asylum. Yeah, because he talked to the lawyers now. And adjustment of status because he's of his fiancée. He wants to marry her. He also argued he's not a danger to the community, no criminal convictions. He says, I'm not a gang member, and objected to the form being submitted that we read through and the Prince County interview sheet because he lacked the opportunity to cross-examine the detective, saying we shouldn't read those things, right? So this is a lawyer speaking now on his behalf. So Homeland opposed the request for bond. They said, no, he's a gang member. He was arrested in the company of other ranking gang members. He was confirmed to be a ranking member himself by a reliable source. It's all legally admissible, so we admit it. Now, they say if you want to re-challenge your bond, burden's on you. And as an immigration judge, there's a bunch of factors I need to consider: length of residence, family ties, employment history, record of appearance, criminal record, natures of activity, and more. Now, after considering the information the judge wrote, the court concluded that no bond was appropriate in this matter. The lower court reasoned that the respondent failed to meet his burden of demonstrating that his release would not pose a danger to others, and the evidence shows he's a verified member of MS-13 hanging out with other verified members. The BIA has held that, absent any indication the information was incorrect, the form is inherently trustworthy. This is immigration, right? It's not a criminal charge. It's about removal. The respondent contends that his case erroneously states that he was detained in connection to a murder investigation. He also claims that it internally contradicts itself as to whether the respondent fears returning to El Salvador, which it does. The reason for the arrest given on the form does appear at odds with the gang field interview sheet, which states that the respondent was approached because he and others were loitering outside Home Depot. But regardless, the determination that he is a gang member appears to be trustworthy and is supported by other evidence in the record, namely the info in the gang sheet. Although the court is reluctant to give an evidentiary weight to his clothing, the fact that past proven reliable sources verified that is sufficient to support this. And this is also the key. He has failed to present evidence, this judge, to rebut that assertion. Now, the court held that no bond was appropriate in order to ensure he would come back. And his case also presents limited eligibility for relief. He's not married. Any immigration relief that he can be expected to gain from marriage is also speculative. Although the respondent says he wants to file for asylum because some lawyer told him to do that, his eligibility appears limited to withholding of removal and protection against Convention Against Torture for failing to file an application, right? Where was his asylum claim when he first got here? Oh yeah, didn't happen. Those forms of relief are limited and contain standards that are difficult to meet. And they just made it up with the papusa thing all of a sudden. In addition, the record evidence shows that the respondent has a history of failing to appear for traffic violations. He asserted he didn't get notice, but in his written statement, he says, yeah, I remember getting citations and I chose not to follow up on him. Why would he? He's an illegal. Why would he care? The respondent's lack diligence in following up of his traffic court cases indicates he cannot be trusted to appear in immigration court. So in light of these findings, the court says no bond's appropriate, and he reserved the right to appeal, and he did. And when it went up on appeal, they affirmed it. They said, yeah, he appeals this decision. An immigration judge issued a memo saying he's a flight risk. So the appeal will be dismissed. Thanks for playing. We review for clear factual findings for clear error. Did she make any clear errors, that lower level judge? No. Saying an alien must demonstrate that they won't be a danger. Okay, it's their burden to prove. He says that she clearly erred because there's no reliable evidence on the record. They say, no, they're not. Prince George County gang field interview sheet. They say it's based on hearsay. But they also claim that he presented sufficient evidence to say he's not a gang member. He's only been charged with traffic tickets. So therefore, they say that he's not a danger. But no, we adopt the immigration judge, what she said the Court of Appeals. Notwithstanding their challenges to the forms, they appropriately considered the gang affiliation against the respondent in determining that he has not demonstrated that he's not a danger. Saying, well, you can look at circumstantial evidence. You may look at a number of factors and more. And she did that appropriately. And so we don't need to address anything else. So the appeal is dismissed. The guy had plenty of due process. It's all right here. Here, let me scroll it again in case your liberal friends can't see it. Here's due process right there on the screen. Here, send them this video. Hey, dum-dums, look, it's all right here. Lots of due process, all adjudicated, all in writing. Rewind the video if you want to read it again. But adjudicated in court as having sufficient evidence as being a member of MS-13. It's not a criminal case. We're not holding him in custody. We put him out of our country. We sent him to El Salvador. They're holding him in custody. And he can go through their legal system for that petition and do whatever he needs to do down there. But that's not our prerogative. He's not a citizen here. He's out of our country, and he's going to stay out of our country. And Pam Bondi detailed that very nicely for us. Now, what's happening here, what's so insane about this ridiculous hoax, is the Democrats love this dude. Top House Democrats are now trying to send a delegation down there, and one senator was already down there. This dude, Senator Chris Van Hollen, he said, I'm about to board my flight to El Salvador, where I'm going to try to meet with senior government officials to discuss the return of the twice wife-beating Kilmar. I hope to see Kilmar and check in on his condition and remind him that we won't stop fighting until he's home. He is home. This is a Maryland senator who made a field trip down to go kowtow and meet with a foreign terrorist when his own constituents are being beaten in his home. Now, here's what apparently he was on live on YouTube, and here's some of that.
I may be the first United States senator to visit El Salvador on this issue, but there will be more, and there will be more members of Congress coming.
I hope so. Send them all.
This is an unsustainable and unjust moment, so it cannot continue this way.
All right, that's pretty embarrassing for them. So he's down there. He was probably in the car ride. He's like, he beats his wife? Are you serious? Well, that's not very good for us. Yeah, not good. AOC was also out screaming about this, saying it is criminal that he's being held abroad. And I thought these people were standing up for women, not against domestic violence abusers.
And we also demand the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia in El Salvador. And we tell President Bukele, if we believe in democracy, he must be returned. It is criminal that he is being held abroad.
Oh my gosh. Get used to a lot more AOC because they love her, man. And it's interesting to see their party reorient around foreigners and foreign terrorists and gang members to such an intense degree. But I guess if that's who their constituency is, what else are they going to do? Andy Biggs is pointing this out, says, it's pretty strange and shocking that a sitting Maryland senator spent taxpayer dollars on a trip to a foreign nation over an illegal alien who was rightfully deported. He didn't say a word about a woman in his own state, not the wife who was beaten, but who was murdered by illegals. Shameful. Democrats care more about illegals than about American citizens. Not a peep from Chris Van Hollen about Rachel Morin or Kayla Hamilton, who was murdered by illegals that never should have been in our country at all. What's that senator doing over there? Why doesn't he care about his American constituents? And a question came up yesterday. Why are these people so in love with Kilmar? First of all, I think it's because they had the poison pill DOJ attorney who inserted that error word into the entire lexicon here, who got fired, covering that next. But also because this dude is a member of CASA, and he's a labor union member, according to the AFL-CIO, said that he is a local 100 apprentice and works for a union. And he's a member of CASA, according to this post, saying, yeah, he's a loving father, husband, brother, union construction worker, and CASA member. Okay, so he's like illegal Democrat extraordinaire. And he beats his wife just like Doug, Backhand Doug. What was his name? Emhoff. Backhand Doug, who beat his wife. So it's just, I guess, a theme with them. But Chris Van Hollen went down there and is, I guess, rallying for the release of a foreign terrorist. But Rachel Morin came in, and she was a special guest today at the White House when Karoline Leavitt approached the podium, addressed the media, and explained, Kilmar is a foreign terrorist. He's not coming home. And so just get used to it.
Today, we have officially learned Democrat officials still refuse to accept the will of the American people. Maryland Democrat Senator Chris Van Hollen rushed to Dulles Airport this morning to fly to El Salvador, potentially using taxpayer dollars, to demand the release of deported illegal alien MS-13 terrorist. The Democrats and the media in this room have continually and wrongly labeled Kilmar Abrego Garcia as a Maryland father. There is no Maryland father. Let me reiterate. Kilmar Abrego Garcia is an illegal alien, MS-13 gang member and foreign terrorist who was deported back to his home country. And when Kilmar Abrego Garcia was originally arrested, he was wearing a sweatshirt with rolls of money covering the ears, mouth, and eyes of presidents on various currency denominations. This is a known MS-13 gang symbol of hear no evil, speak no evil, see no evil. Abrego Garcia was also arrested with two other well-known members of the vicious MS-13 gang. And two separate judges found that Abrego Garcia was a member of MS-13, and that finding has never been disputed. And just this morning, it was revealed through Maryland court documents that Abrego Garcia's wife petitioned for an order of protection against him for 2 instances of domestic violence in May of 2021. And here is the order right here. The court ordered that the respondent committed the following acts of abuse. Once in May of 2021, assault in any degree. And on May 4th of 2021, he punched and scratched his wife, ripped off her shirt, and grabbed and bruised her. This is from a court in Maryland. So not only are Democrats rushing to defend an illegal criminal foreign terrorist gang member, but also an apparent woman beater. To set all of that aside, the basic fact that he was illegally inside our country and had a lawful deportation order made him subject to removal back to his home country of El Salvador. And if he ever ends up back in the United States, he would immediately be deported again. Nothing will change the fact that Abrego Garcia will never be a Maryland father. He will never live in the United States of America again. And the United States Supreme Court ruled unanimously that the President of the United States and the Secretary of State could not be compelled to forcibly retrieve this citizen of El Salvador who is currently locked up in a maximum security prison in his home country due to his MS-13 membership.
And that is where he will stay. So the hoax of the Maryland man who's just a loving father, who's there with his loving wife, building a nice American life, meaning that we should just ignore all of our laws, is really what they're asking for. It's right. It's an exception. It's to say your laws don't matter. If we think he's a good enough person, then all your laws are irrelevant and we'll just get rid of them. And everybody in America can stay as long as we find some justification for that to happen. But not happening. The records are now released, and it has been amazing to watch the Democrats double down on this to such a degree and invest all of their energy into a person like this. Why don't they care about Americans? Maybe one day they will. All right, so good updates on that. Now, quick update on this story as well. The poison pill DOJ attorney who tried to wreck the Kilmar Abrego deportation case by inserting that little phrase in there called administrative error, which was never true, is now fired. He had been suspended earlier, and that felt good, but not good enough. Now they're telling us he's gone. CNN reporting on this saying he was the man who was arguing to save Kilmar, kind of, even though he was representing Trump, who should have been supporting the deportations. They fired this dude. He's been accused of sabotaging its legal case. Absolutely right. Poison pill from the beginning. Over the mistaken deportation of the Salvadorian man. And it has enabled this entire scandal with Judge Xinis to order him to come back. Erez Ruvini, the guy who is fired, he said that the government's case, when he was arguing it, that it was a clerical error. Remember that crap? Despite a court order saying that he not be deported. But that's not how this works. The Alien Enemies Act overrode the proclamation rather of him being MS-13 overrode the withholding order, because if you are part of a designated terrorist group, you don't get withholding of removal because you're a terrorist. If you're a legitimate papusa boy and your papusa's really under attack, okay, we won't send you back there. But if you're a gangbanger and you're like, well, I can't go back because I'm a gang member and I'll get shot by a rival gang. We're like, well, we don't want you here as another gang member. So our laws are not going to afford you withholding. So once that decision was made and that label changed, he lost his right. He never had a right to be here, but that withholding status put him in a different category and he got gone. Now, Ruvini was initially placed on administrative leave days after he expressed frustration with the government's inability to provide answers to questions from a judge in the case. He said, our only arguments are jurisdictional. He says he should not have been sent to El Salvador. We read that. We're like, huh? This is a Trump DOJ person? He was suspended the next day. Asked why the U.S. couldn't simply ask for the return, Ruvini said, well, Your Honor, the first thing I did when I got this case on my desk is ask my clients the very same question, Judge. She's like, wow, that's great. Adding, I didn't get a direct answer. Wall Street Journal first reported the firing, said during an Oval Office meeting on Monday that included Trump, Stephen Miller, Bukele, and others, they disputed that this was an error at all. The only mistake that was made is a lawyer put an incorrect line in a legal filing that has since been relieved of duty by. The DOJ hasn't changed its characterization of the error. Yeah, they have. At my direction, every DOJ attorney is required to zealously advocate on behalf of the U.S. Bondi issued a memo saying you have to advocate zealously for the administration or you're fired. So he's gone. Good riddance to him. He got fired. He'll go get a job with Perkins Coie or somebody like that. But Roger Parloff was saying, this is a shame, He was with the DOJ for 14 years, 9 months. That's why he's fired, because he's an institutional hack. Been there for 7.5 years, became acting director of litigation this past October. There you go, right? That's a poison pill right there. Became acting deputy director past October. Joe Biden shoved him in as Joe Biden was leaving, and he tried to wreck the case, and he did. He poisoned it so badly that a lot of people in the media are still calling it an administrative error. It never was. It was a lawful proclamation that superseded his withholding, because we don't provide withholding to terrorists in America. It's obvious. It shouldn't even be complicated. But that's what happened. So he's gone. J.D. Vance jumped into this, and he posted this on X today. He said, consider that Joe Biden allowed approximately 20 million illegal aliens into our country. This placed extraordinary burdens on our country. Our schools, hospitals, housing, and other essential services were overwhelmed. Now, on top of that, many of these illegal aliens committed violent crimes, facilitated fentanyl and trafficking. That is the situation that we inherited. Saying the American people elected the Trump administration to solve this problem. The president has successfully stopped the inflow of illegal aliens, and now we must deport the people who came here illegally. To say the administration must observe due process is to beg the question, what process is due is a function of our resources, the public interest, the status of the accused, the proposed punishment, and so many other factors. To put it in concrete terms, imposing the death penalty on an American citizen requires more legal process than deporting an illegal alien to the country of their origin. Just obvious. When the media and the far left obsess over an MS-13 gang member and demand that he be returned to the United States for a third deportation, what they're really saying is they want the vast majority of illegal aliens to stay here permanently. Nailed it. The law doesn't matter. Here's a useful test. Ask the people weeping over the lack of due process, which he got plenty of, what precisely they propose for dealing with Biden's millions and millions of illegals. And we already know it's full trials, probably with a jury, probably with government-appointed lawyers that will take endless years to facilitate, which means 2 million people will functionally not be deportable. And with reasonable resources and administrative judge complaints, does their solution allow us to deport at least a few million people per year? No. If the answer is no, they've given the game away. They don't want border security. They don't want us to deport the people they invaded us with, who've come here illegally. They want to accomplish through fake legal process what they failed to accomplish politically, which is the legal ratification of Biden's illegal alien invasion. And the administration has been softening their language. They call it illegal migrant. We're going to still use alien term here. President Trump and I will not stand for it, which is a great post from JD Vance. Now, Doug Burgum is down there at the border, and he's saying they're signing new stuff that it's going to give them functional control over the border for once finally in our lives.
We got this exclusive access, though, as you mentioned, to Secretary of Interior Doug Burgum as he signed these documents transferring a stretch of land along the border to the military for 3 years. It's all part of the Roosevelt Reservation, which runs through parts of New Mexico, California, and Arizona. Secretary Burgum toured the New Mexico section, an area known for illegal crossings, gotaways, and smuggling activities.
And the cartels, in many cases, they've got more funding, they've got more incentives, they've got more determination to do it. I mean, we're up against a real enemy here. We need to make sure the border's secure, not just to protect the citizens from bad actors that are entering, but it's a real effective national security.
Nice. All right. So we're looking forward to that, to securing the border even harder than before. This person, Representative Miley Moore, he said, I was down there in CCOT. The Democrats couldn't get in there, but I got in. This maximum security facility houses the country's most beautiful criminals, brutal criminals, including murderers, rapists, PDF files, and terrorists. Several inmates were extremely violent criminals recently deported from the U.S. I leave now even more determined to support Trump's efforts to secure our homeland. And there you go. Inside, showing us where the bad folks are going. Now, shout out to Trisha McLaughlin, Trisha Ohio on X. She posted over from Homeland saying, Kilmar is not a Maryland man, okay? He is an MS-13 gang member, human trafficking, entered the United States illegally. He is going to El Salvador. That was always going to be the end game.
What really matters to Americans is that this MS-13 gang member, who unfortunately, Jay, you and a lot of your colleagues have called a Maryland man, when in reality,
I'm going to stop you there. What is your evidence,
member.
Trisha? Wait, I got to stop you there. What's your evidence that he's in MS-13?
Well, there's actually been 2 separate immigration judges, Jay, who have confirmed and ruled that he is a member of MS-13.
Well,
that as well as we have intelligence
it was brought up in deportation
sure did,
proceedings.
Jay.
But what's the evidence that was
and
brought up in those
his,
deportation
and
proceedings?
And they dismissed his appeal, Jay. I can do this all day, Jay. He is a member of MS-13. I don't think you'd want to be his neighbor, Jay. I sure wouldn't. And I don't think many Americans watching would want to be this individual's neighbor. He's been involved in human trafficking. He's been involved in labor trafficking, and he should not be in this country. So whether he's in an El Salvadorian jail or a U.S. detention facility, I am so very glad, as are millions of Americans, that he is off of U.S. streets. Because remember, Jay, who is MS-13? They maim, they rape, they kill Americans for sport, and the American people are done with it. They said so on November 5th, 2024.
Amazing. So happy to see that out there, confirming that this dude is what we've been saying he is from the very beginning. The Trump administration got it right. The Democrats, as usual, and all the ACLU gangbang lawyers and Judge Xinis and the rest of them have thrown all of their eggs into a wife-beating MS-13 gang member, illegal alien who invaded our country. That's their number one constituent at the moment. And all the people who support Kilmar, we encourage them to continue to fight that good fight, hopefully right through the midterms. All right, so good update there. That poison pill lawyer is now fired. Happy to see that too. And lastly, my friends, you know what time it is. Oh, shoot. It's Tishy time, and she's not happy. Tish James is not happy. She's just got a criminal referral over from Mr. Pulte, and the document got handed off to us via our friends at Just the News. You can see here's what it looks like. The letter drafted to Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche, 2 people who know very well how the lawfare against Trump was orchestrated by people like Letitia James. Remember, Tish tried to take out Trump and relieve him of $500 million, $500 million, in a fake fraud trial where there were very sophisticated buyers. Trump was negotiating with the banks, gave the banks financial statements. The banks gave him loans based on the financial statements and their due diligence that they made independent analysis of, and came to terms. The banks never complained. Nobody declared fraud. But Tish said they should have charged Trump a higher interest rate because Tish knows better than the banks or whatever, and sued Trump, civil claims, saying that he should basically divest himself of properties, right? He had to come up with $500 million as a bond. Remember that? How insane that was? So she now is under criminal investigation for actual fraud, right? It's always projection. She says Trump was a fraudster. Turns out it was her. Now there's a criminal referral going over to the very people who were on Team Trump defending against these fraudulent allegations. This went out, you can see, drafted from our friend William J. Pulte over at FHFA, writing this to the Department of Justice. Criminal referral for Letitia James, New York Attorney General, writing, Dear Attorney General Bondi and Deputy AG Todd Blanche, pursuant to my authority as director of the U.S. Federal Housing Finance Agency, I am referring the matter below. As regulator of Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and federal home loan banks, we take very seriously allegations of mortgage fraud or other criminal activity, and such misconduct jeopardizes the safety and the soundness of our regulated entities and the security and the stability of the U.S. mortgage market. Tish? In the course of exercising U.S. federal housing authorities under the Safety Soundness Act, we have identified matters that are appropriate for referral to the U.S. Department of Justice for consideration of criminal prosecution. Now, based on media reports, Miss Letitia James, aka Tish, has in multiple instances falsified bank documents and property records to acquire government-backed assistance and loans and more favorable loan terms. Sounds like fraud. This is potentially included falsifying residence status for a Norfolk, Virginia-based home in order to secure a lower mortgage rate, right? You get a second home, you get a loan on the second home, you tell the mortgage company it's a second home, they're going to jack your rates up. You say it's my primary residence, I'll live there, they give you the regular rates. That was a lie. Saved a bunch of money with that lie. Also misrepresented property descriptions to meet stringent requirements for government-backed loans and government assistance. And that was the same scam where she had a property that was basically subbed into 5 property residences. She said it was 4 because if it's a 4-unit building, you can get access to this government mortgage. If it's a 5, nope, got to go get something else. So she said it was a 4 when it was a 5 to get better deals, saving tens of thousands of dollars a year, like a fraudster. On August 17, 2023, James granted Miss Xinis Thompson Hairston power of attorney to make a Virginia property her principal residence. And on August 30th, through her attorney, James purchased the property in Virginia. In a Fannie Mac form called 3047 and in mortgage documents, she reaffirmed this is going to be my primary residence. What? She lives in New York, not Virginia. She's the New York Attorney General. She's a statewide public office holder in the state of New York. At the same time, and primarily residing in the state of New York. So how did she fill that out? In fact, a building permit issued on her New York property July 15th last year lists her New York property as the James residence, and it says remain occupied. So Letitia James, this is the James residence, and yeah, it's occupied. Yes, I'm in it. Now, primary residence mortgages, Letitia, they receive more favorable loan terms, including lower interest rates than secondary residence mortgages. Lenders view secondary mortgages as significantly riskier, as a borrower is more likely to continue to pay off their primary residence in a time of hardship. Interest rates on secondary mortgages are typically between 0.25 to 0.5 higher than their primary residence. Now, this gap can widen depending on the lender. At the time of 2023 in Virginia, James was the sitting AG of New York, and she's required by law to have her primary residence in New York, even though her mortgage applications list her intent to have Virginia as her primary home. It appears that her property and her mortgage-related misrepresentations may have continued to her recent property purchase and securing her a lower interest rate and more favorable loan terms. Busted. We have another property, though, in New York. In 2001, her certificate of occupancy lists this property as having 5 units. On February 14th, James purchased this 5-family dwelling. She got a conforming loan through Freddie Mae and Fannie Mac. Those loans are only available, though, on 4 units or less. Spanning the last 2 decades, James has consistently misrepresented the same property as only having 4 units in both building permits and more. But she's collecting rents on 5 families. Isn't that sick? Conforming loans have favorable rates and terms. Conforming single-family loans are subject to a cap of 4 dwellings per property. She's got 5. So she's paying a mortgage for 4 units on a 5-unit building, pocketing the windfall. A building that exceeds 4 units must be treated as a multifamily property and has a larger down payment requirement and higher interest rates, with interest rates being 0.75 to 1 point higher due to viewing multifamily loans as significantly riskier. Additionally, the Home Assistance Mod program was started in 2008 to provide homeowners with risks against foreclosure, and it appears that Tish may have listed the property as 4 units instead of 5 units to meet the loan requirements to get better interest rates so that she could save some cash. This is falsification through the law. Now, as Miss James for both properties, as she appears to have falsified records to get better terms, this is fraud. FHFA believes this and other alleged misconduct could be violations of the criminal code, could be wire fraud, mail fraud, bank fraud, false statements to a financial institution, and more. And so for your reference, Pam and Todd, I have also attached documentation which shows that in 1983, that Miss James and her father signed mortgage documents that stated that they were husband and wife. She married her papa in order to secure a home mortgage. Then on May 4th, 2000, James was listed again as husband and wife with her father. Sick! While this was a long time ago, it raises concerns about James's representations on her mortgage allegations. Now, there are unfortunately too many examples of individuals who commit mortgage fraud. In fact, just last year, a federal jury convicted Marilyn Mosby, remember her of Baltimore, on the federal charge of false mortgage applications when she was the city attorney relating to her purchase of property in Florida. In fact, just last week, after the hard work of others, a St. Louis man also pled guilty to fraudulently obtaining home mortgages as well. And so, as always, we look forward to cooperating with you, Pam and Todd. The FHFA appreciates the DOJ support in ensuring protection of American home buyers against fraudulent Tishes who are stinking up the courtrooms with their shoes being removed in the middle of trials. Signed by William J. Pulte, Director, FHFA. Tish is in trouble. She can be happy about this, and she doesn't sound like it. We'll listen to a little bit of this, but you can also just get the gist of it from her mannerisms and her body language. What is she screaming about? What is she pointing at? Her eyeballs are flailing all over the place, and she's like on a tear right there. Maybe meth too. I don't know. Here's what it sounded like.
My mission is clear. I'm focused. I'm prepared. I'm ready. I've been trained by the best.
Who?
I went to Howard University.
Oh!
That overturned legal segregation in this country. I've been taught in those classrooms where Thurgood Marshall once taught. I'm not afraid of no president. Donald Trump, we're ready for you. We're coming for you. We're standing up for you.
Whoa, we're coming for you? Whoa, that sounds like a little insurrectionary language there, Tish. You know what we're going to add? seditious conspiracy to the charges. Enjoy it.
We're fighting on. We're not going down silent. Victory, my friends, is clear. It's now. And I'm not waiting 4 years. I'm waiting 2.
The Zoom.
Until a speaker by the name of Hakeem Jeffries
The Zoom.
comes to bring us some rest. Come on, ladies. It's up to us. We saved this democracy before. We'll save it now. Let's go.
Yikes. All right. So we're also going to charge her with intentional infliction of emotional distress for frying and zapping our brain cells. But that's New York's Attorney General. That's the great state of New York. That's who they've got representing them there, leading the charge, fighting for justice in their state. A whole state. New York. The hell's going on over there? Nobody knows, but they've got a fraudulent New York Attorney General there who's having a meltdown in public. We're going to continue to cover it, my friends. Hopefully, Pam and Todd Blanche receive the message and act with haste. All right. And so, my beautiful friends, what a day and what a stream it has been. An extra juicy one today. If you're just joining us, let me give you a quick recap on what we talked about because we went through some good stuff today. So we talked about Boasberg. First step was understanding what happened with the Supreme Court, which essentially stripped Boasberg of jurisdiction. But he kept the case, doesn't care, and has now issued an order holding Trump in contempt unless he complies with the TRO, which was vacated by the Supreme Court, by bringing these people back to America in or essentially custody, whatever that means, when he didn't have the power to do it at all. So it's a totally insane case. We can't wait to see what Trump does with it. They're already going to appeal it, and we're happy about it. Then we talked about the Kilmar case, learned a lot about this dude, including the fact that he beat his wife, according to her, twice, filed 2 orders of protection against the guy. Andy NGO gave us the details on that, one from 2020, one from 2021, in the court documents where she went in and petitioned for it. Homeland Security said she reported that he punched, scratched, and ripped off her shirt, grabbed her, and abused her, bruised her 2 times, separate incidents. So that's pretty interesting because they told us that wasn't true at all. We also then read through this gang report that they finally released for us all to see, which shows very clearly what the cops found when they came upon him. He was hanging out with other MS-13 gang members wearing MS-13 affiliated things, had cash and weird stuff going on, was reported by confidential informants to be a gang member, had a full court hearing on it, challenging it, and had an appeal on it, challenging it, had plenty of due process, and now wants another hearing because apparently they want to continue to play the game until they win. And we're not going to do that anymore. We have lunatic Democrats who are going down to El Salvador. They're hanging their hat on this one, saying that this is their cause du jour now. They're fighting not for the American citizen wife, Jennifer Vasquez, who got beaten by this guy twice, or for the constituents in Maryland who've lost their children to illegal aliens who never should have been in our country, pointing this out, saying they don't care about them. They're just out there talking about gang members for some strange reason. We also learned that the poison pill attorney who was responsible for inserting the administrative error language has now been fired. That was obviously a poison pill. It was never something you'd expect any lawyer anywhere to admit ever, especially when it's not true. Yes, Your Honor, you're right. We made an error. It's like law school 101, okay? You should be fired immediately for that. The answer is no, it depends. Well, that's not exactly how I see it, Judge. You say it's an error. I say it's a tremendous victory. That person's fired. His name is Erez Ruvini. He's one of these people who tries to hide in the gutter with no real social presence at all. So we'd like to make sure you know his name. Erez Ruvini, the poison pill DOJ attorney, fired. Bye. Happy to see it. We also then went through and learned more about what JD Vance thinks about this whole thing. And then we talked about Tish, the biggest Tish in New York City, who's having a very public meltdown, screaming, pointing, pounding the chest, just going AWOL, because she is now getting a criminal referral for her mortgage fraud. She was the same person who lectured Trump saying no one's above the law. Turns out she was marrying her father, lying about a 5-residence building that she owns, and declaring her residence was in Virginia so she could get lower mortgage rates. Talk about fraud. Hopefully the DOJ acts quickly and justice is done because no one is above the law. But now, my friends, it has been a beautiful stream, and thank you so much for these donos and the support. It's really a treat to spend this time with you. I was excited for this show, man. As we were sitting here prepping, it's like document after document dropped, and it is history that we're going through, and I think we're on the verge of something pretty big. So we're going to see what Trump does in response, and I'm really grateful to spend the time with you here. Thank you for your support. And let's see who is here and joining us. We got some great donos here. Let's see who's here. What's up, Chrono? Yeah, this is live, baby. We're live. And we got a ton of donos, my friends. Thank you for sending these in. Super generous. Donut working overtime. John working overtime today. You guys are great. Oh, we got funny memes too. Geegum is in the house. Super funny. Okay, so let's see who we've got today. Lots of comments. I'm very grateful. Thank you for sending these in. All right, let's hit them. We got this one from LKD 503056. Says, why can't they prosecute the people who are conspiring to insurrect the office of the president? They have been openly saying that they're going to be doing this. Openly saying that they're going to be doing it. I think we might have answered that. Was that this morning or yesterday? Let's see. I think those were from this morning. So, oh yes. Okay. Those were from this morning. My apologies. I can say that sounds familiar. Okay. Yes, those were from this morning. We got those. All right. This one. Chuck, what's up? Chuck is here. Thank you, Chuck, for becoming a membo. Membos, we'll see you tomorrow, 12 noon Eastern for the membo stream. Mommy Mima, what's up? Says, wanted to get a question in early. How is the senator's outrageous remarks to El Salvador president not a huge breach in foreign relations? Yeah, I think we kind of mentioned that yesterday. We didn't really look into it much, but I think it was the Logan Act, right? Is what somebody mentioned that was the Logan Act. And this says 1799 prohibits unauthorized American citizens from engaging in foreign negotiations, specifically criminalizes an attempt by a private citizen to influence things. So I don't know if that impacts, if that applies to senators, but it's certainly inappropriate, right? It's undermining what Trump is doing. But does it apply to senators? I'm not sure. This old guy says, any man who strikes a woman should be publicly flogged. Yeah, it's a very disgusting and cowardly and kind of unmanly thing to do. And he did it twice. Shocking. This old guy, hey, Rob, from Doan Baril, says, you made me almost run up a curb this morning laughing when you yelled, potatoes, talking about Biden at the dinner table today. Yeah, Biden, he had a kind of one of those moments last night, or I think, yeah, it was last night during his speech. We were falling asleep when he was speaking this morning, and then he started screaming at us. I'm like, gosh, it must be hard to have dinner with him, is the point. Thank you, Don. Hey, Voice of the People, 25 months as a membo. Great to see you, Voice. Thanks for being here for 25 months. That's a long time. Shout out to Voice of the People and their podcast, Off Label. Says, refresh if your video stopped working because YouTube is a-hole. Hey, Just Rhonda is back, baby. I'm free, our purveyor of fine emojis. Emojing the fort down for us. Great to have you back, Just Rhonda. Don't know what the problem was exactly, but we're glad you're back. Thanks for being here. 13 months as a membo. You're amazing. Doan says, that story wouldn't have broken if clown Van Hollen didn't go down there for clicks. Now the ex-girlfriend is a target thanks to that grandstanding camera hog. Well, the ex-girlfriend or the fiance, I think, is now going to have to explain herself. Like, why wasn't she honest about that? She didn't tell us about his the two domestic violence claims she filed against the dude. This old guy, what's up? Hey, this old guy, you came by? You got to hang out with us today? Hey, Rob, great show with the Liberty Spenders. Great conversation. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. They were very generous with the time. It's nice when I can just run my mouth unabated. Thank you, this old guy, for coming over and joining us. It was fun. Fred says, so I have court on the 28th regarding unjustified eviction. Couldn't get through this without Knox Bierman. Please pray for me and Johnny Boy. We'll do that, Fred. I'm sorry to hear about that. Knox, I know, has been a tremendous support and a really, really amazing person. Knox, I know, and I appreciate you. You're amazing. So, Fred, we're going to keep sending some love your way, my man. I'm sorry to hear about that, but thanks for coming by the show. Hey, what's going on? This one came in from Rubik's Ninja. It doesn't matter if they have committed crime. Coming into the U.S. illegally is enough to deport anyone. Why are we constantly trapped into debating whether they are good people or not? It's a great question because they're trying to change the goalpost and change the conversation. It's like thinking past the sale is the term of art. No, it's not that they broke the law or that they're here illegally. It's just whether they're good or not to stay. And then everybody you can make the argument is good enough to stay. It's a great question, but you shouldn't buy it, right? They didn't commit any crimes. Yeah, they did. Are they in the country illegally? Yeah. Did they report? Did they have any lawful status? No, then it's illegal from the baseline. So they should go. Thank you, Rubix. It's a great point. And I think the people who were debating that, they know that. Shell Bell. Because think of what's their argument? Like, would they suddenly be okay if Kilmar were deported to Venezuela? Like the only withholding thing that they're hanging their hat on is the withholding to El Salvador. But if you send him to Venezuela, would they be okay with that? No. It's not about these illegals. It's about all of the illegals. They want to just muck up the deportation process legally. Shell Bell, what's up, Shell Bell? Thanks for being a member. We'll see you tomorrow. Steel Manning. So what happens if Trump has pardons handy for anyone in the executive branch held in contempt in a federal court? Yeah, I don't think anything. Political consequences, people might say, oh, now he's violating a court and they're holding him in contempt and he's pardoning his people, but nothing. Congress, if they don't like that, they can impeach him. A state person could prosecute somebody and they could say his pardon power doesn't reach to a state. So some state level could, retaliate. But the pardon power is massive. So as soon as the depositions start, I think you can just pardon everybody. Nope, you're not in contempt anymore. You're done. Will Crump, what's up? Boasberg set a contempt trap and sprung it today. Is there any way Boasberg can force classified information like he wants? Can contempt be appealed? Yeah, so they'll appeal that. This whole thing will get appealed to death. But no, I mean, not really. I can hold him in contempt. He can order the arrests or something, but what's he going to do ultimately? Trump's in control of the executive branch, and he's going to be for the next 4 years. So I'm not sure what Boasberg can do to force it. And Trump can, and I don't think he can force the president to do anything. And the next level would be, well, what about Rubio and the lower level people? And he can pardon all of them. Sharpie Guy says, oh, clickbait man, stop that right now, from Sharpie Guy. We got Alice Elizabeth says, here's a question. We know that the U.S. funds unfavorable groups for its color revolutions. Was there some kind of a deal made where if they participate in those color revolutions, they get U.S. citizenship? I feel like this could account for the number of truly unlawful violent people that came over the border. Well, probably. I mean, they were probably thinking that just past is future. And like Reagan, right? Reagan came in and I think legalized a bunch of people. So probably like that. Like if you can get in, as long as you can get past the door before the carnival closes, you're in. So just get in before it closes. And at some point, like we were on the verge of that. We had that loser Republican called Senator Lankford, who came down and said, we have to codify 5,000 illegals coming across a day. And we need comprehensive immigration reform to deal with these people and all that crap. That's what they thought was going to happen. And that's probably what would have happened if Trump hadn't won. And now it's not. Don't. Progressive of Bozo to project his own contempt. Yeah. Yeah, here you go. Okay, so Walker versus City of Birmingham. Supreme Court held that protesters who deliberately violate an injunction without first seeking to have it modified cannot attack the constitutionality of it. Yeah, so they were private, like they were citizens, like they were civil rights activists. They were not the president of the United States or a co-equal branch of government. They were activists. The activists, private citizens, cannot disobey a court order. That makes sense. That's not the same case. Boasberg can't call Walker versus City of Birmingham an equivalent parallel analog case with any precedential value at all. It's not. Tom Walker, what's up? We need a judge to issue a TRO on injunctions. Yeah, I think that's right. And we were contemplating that, like, maybe I could be appointed and I could just issue an injunction against Washington, D.C., for example. No, it's closed. What do you mean? It's an injunction. It's closed for 30 days. Go find something else to do. Thomas Dixon. Welcome aboard, Thomas Dixon. See you tomorrow on the Membo stream. This old guy says, if a U.S. citizen is locked up abroad, they are subject to the foreign sovereign laws. The U.S. government may negotiate with the foreign government for the citizen's release. However, in my entire life, I can't remember the U.S. government ever negotiating for the release of the foreign sovereign's citizen. Yeah, it's a strange thing. Almost, they don't even advocate for our own citizens. I think I saw this first from Mike Cernovich on Gonzalo Lira. Remember him? The guy who was captured by the Ukrainians, American citizen who died over there. Yeah, where was the ACLU on that one? Oh, yeah. Jeff Webb, what's up, Jeff? Thank you for becoming a member, Jeff. We had a great stream this morning, and we'll see you back tomorrow. Sheila Poo, who would even execute a contempt order against POTUS? Well, so he would appoint a special counsel. The special counsel would make the referral, I think, to Trump's DOJ, and then Trump's DOJ would not prosecute itself. So I'm not real sure what this judge thinks is going to happen here, to be honest with you. What's going on? This one from DC Metro, 11 months as a member. Thank you, DC Metro. Coming up on one happy anniversary soon. Will Crump, this is all about tying Trump up in court and using his legal counsel resources as much as possible to obstruct the president's administration. Yeah, but the thing here is this is a little different. Remember, before the election, before Trump was in office, every lawyer that he had to hire out of pocket. Now, the DOJ is paid for by the American taxpayer dollars, which is, or printed money, which is basically endless. So in terms of resources, we would much rather be on this side. Endless resources, cost him nothing. It's actually likely draining the coffers of all of these other Democratic groups who are going to have to be spending their time and money. And that, it's not free. You got to pay those lawyers. So they're siphoning that money off from who knows where. But it's not as endless as government money. One old guy's opinions. What's up? Hey, Walker versus City of Birmingham. This was about civil rights protesters, not a president. And whether the state court could have an injunction and whether they could be charged with contempt. Yeah, it should. Yeah, because they're not the president. They don't have a co-equal mandate of power. They're just civilians. They're not Trump. Jeff Monhe. Thank you for the nice dono, that one old guy. Jeff Monhe. The Democrats are using lawfare and gaslighting again. They are attempting to obstruct the Trump agenda. Yeah, and they're working so hard that they're trying to put lipstick on the pig of MS-13 terrorists. Like that's all they've got is Kilmar. Number one deplorable says Trump swore an oath to violate Boasberg's unconstitutional order. And Boasberg is a Bozoberg. Very true, number one. Thanks for the dono. Yeah. Trump doesn't have to do unconstitutional things because a judge issued an illegal order. Object Class Keeter says, why does it matter when the proclamations are made public? I think that, well, the judge is going to say that that is the start of the notice period, but I don't know if the proclamation was not made public, but they still provided notice to these people. Why is that not good enough? Doesn't it only matter when it was signed and ordered? Yeah, I would say to the people who were the subject of the deportations. We didn't always have the internet and TVs. Yeah, and he wanted every single Tren de Aragua class member to have proper notice or something. But they didn't have every class member in custody. CMAD is here. What's up, CMAD? Hey, how can a sitting president be held in criminal contempt when his official acts are protected by immunity? Trump versus US 2023. Well, that's the second thing. Is that was why I was saying I don't think this judge can hold Trump in criminal contempt at all, specifically, but to the other people, he can, but Trump could pardon those other people, and Trump's DOJ would have to prosecute those other people. So again, it's like dividing by zero. And this was the same argument we had with the classified documents and the January 6th stuff. That's right. Stuff that is within that outer perimeter of the presidential duties and responsibilities. In this case, national security, which is codified under the Constitution. The president has to do these things. He can't be held in contempt for doing his job. Can't charge him with the crime for doing his job. Is the same concept. So it's a very smart comment, CMAD. Thanks for flagging it for us. What's up, DC Metro? Hey, great job breaking down these documents into plain English. Love the content. Thank you, DC. Nice dono, my friend. Thanks for being a membo for so long and for supporting us. They're wild documents. They're wild documents. It's a real treat to go through them together. Thanks for that, DC. We appreciate you. Number one deplorable. Why are we not hearing from the immigration judge that ordered the deportations, questioning these district judges undermining the original order? Yeah, that's another interesting point is what about the judge who issued the withholding order? Like, why isn't that judge saying, where's that judge screaming about this? I said, don't remove him, and you removed him. Where's that judge? It's Judge Boasberg. Where'd that guy go? I don't know. Miss Constitutional Rights. Her diploma above my toilet in my guest house soon. Well, that's going to be a very symbolic gesture. Miss Constitutional Rights. That's funny. Hey, Duff Freak says the migrants need to be tracked from Duff Freak. Good to see you, Duff Freak. Hey, Golden Gaming says like and share to friends and family. Get the truth out there, and together let's shatter the mainstream media narrative. No doubt. Thank you, Golden Gaming. Hey, Chubby Stubby says, I'm shocked we haven't seen a public statement from Boasberg's mother chastising the administration for telling her sweet angel no. Something she'd clearly never done. That's true about that. Yeah. Boasberg. He's probably feeling really good about himself at a cocktail party. His mom, you wrote a great opinion. You did. Yeah. Don't let them hurt your feelings, Jeb. Ronnie Phillips. Boasberg and Xinis, judges can be damned, should be arrested immediately for providing aid and comfort to anti-U.S. enemy terrorist organizations. Yeah. You remember how, like, if you just mention the Proud Boys, they put you on a list? These judges are ordering terrorists into our country. One old guy. Who is getting tired of these inferior district court judges and the lack of intestinal fortitude of SCOTUS? I think you're not alone on that one, one old guy. Many of us are. SCOTUS could settle a lot of this quickly. Hey, Don Goff is here. Good to see you, Don. Thanks for being here for 14 months, my friend. Coming up on 2 babies. Happy birthday to Mama Pillow. Mama Pillow, happy birthday to you. April 16th, happy birthday. Hope you're having a beautiful one, doing something fun. Hey, Doan is here. Doan should hold Bozo in contempt of its ruling. That's, yeah, I don't know why he thinks he can continue to do this. Like, he just created a ticking time bomb for SCOTUS. SCOTUS gave him an out, saying, you don't have jurisdiction, kick this out of your courtroom and leave it alone. Let this lie, okay? Extricate yourself from this. Then he just hit President Trump, the co-equal branch of government, with contempt. Great job. Clark Blount, what's up, Clark? Congress undermined Trump's first presidency with inaction, his first term, and now seems to be doing the same thing again. Yeah, we'll see. We've been paying a little attention to the budget battle and what's happening with Johnson. I think I saw something from Thune today. Yeah, Thune. He put Collins on the finance committee chair. Oh, gosh. John Thune. Great. Yeah, we'll see what they come out with. Hey, one old guy's opinion says, when illegal aliens are being repatriated, the IJ and possible BIA judgments have already happened. So due process has already been exercised. Yeah, and there's several filings that show it. Pages of due process that they say never happened. Weird. Hey, Content of Character says, Judge, I have no authority. Now respect my authority. That's basically what that opinion was, explaining how he can do what he's doing, even though the Supreme Court said you can't do that. Philip Butler, doesn't Trump have immunity from official acts? Yeah, I think the argument ultimately would be that this is not an official act. This is an illegal official act. This is outside the bounds of the presidential prerogative. And so there is no immunity. But I would disagree. I think that he does. And the Supreme Court gave him justification for what he has done, saying that the order was without jurisdiction. He had no basis to do that because they should have filed habeas in Texas. Great comment, Philip B. Hey, Mock Schnell. Would not Boasberg's order be an illegal order since he knew he had no right to issue it? So the government is required to follow lawful orders, not fake orders. 5 months as a membo. Great to see you, Mock Schnell. Yeah. And he's citing the other case saying if you're a civil rights protester, you have to follow the order until it's removed on appeal. Trump is not that. One old guy says, these inferior district court judges are like Cartman, playing the police, telling everybody to respect my authority. Is that how he said it? Something like that. 46 pages, says Karen. This judge is being a Karen. That's funny, Karen. The fact that you can laugh at that. Laugh at that. We love our Karens here. And even our Karens, too. Have you ever met somebody who you thought was a Karen, but their name is actually Karen, but it's spelt like Karen? Yeah. You say, oh, hi, Karen. Nice to meet you. They say, oh, no, I'm sorry. It's Karen. And you say, you know, you're being a real Karen about your name right now. Anyway, it's nice to meet you. So Run Mead. Thank you, Karen, for the dono. Run Mead. The judge's clearance should be gone. We love our Karens here. Says he released problems that required and now more international agreements that are vastly more complex will be necessary, all in the face of the potential public release and the final result. Yeah. Well, Congress could impeach him, but otherwise this judge is not going anywhere, and he's just comfortable as can be right there on the bench. Michael Stetson, hey, says 23 months as a member. Good to see you, Michael. Says the judge has engaged in bad behavior. Afuera! To Boasberg. I concur. That pretty girl is here. What's up, that pretty girl? Thanks for being here for 1 month. First month's the hardest. Gets easier from there. So thankful for my free membo now renewed. That's awesome. Thanks for coming on in here, that pretty girl. Great to have you. Glad you joined up. We'll see you on the Membos stream tomorrow. Hey, Goose Toots is a membo too. Hey, replay crew here. Thank you for all you do, Rob. Thank you, Goose Toots, for supporting us for 11 months. Would not be doing this without you, my friend. Thank you for being here. Object Class Keeter says, where was this, quote, you must follow court orders no matter what in Pennsylvania on November 5th, 2024. Biden did the same thing with student loans and enforcing the border from SCOTUS, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And Biden didn't follow any laws. Like he was supposed to protect the border, supposed to do certain things. Never did. Never did. Hey, Mock Schnell, even though the market is down today, still made my share of profits today. So even more membos. Mock Schnell, you're bringing in membos. Amazing. Thanks for doing that. 20 more membos. Mock Schnell, you're amazing. Glad your numbers were in the green today. Look who's coming in. We got Opus is here. Don Bacca. We got the real Omegatron. Welcome. Steeler Girl. L is here. Jimmy Welch. GMA Judy. Starboy. Ulsterman. Navy Styles. We got Jason Cook. Catania Nana. John C. What's up, Benny Boy? Jordan Sheen. Bob Jones. Tech Zombie. Smoke in the Water. Don Miller and Left Right. Gifted membos courtesy of Mock Schnell. Thank you, Mock Schnell, for doing it. And congrats on the markets today. Chubby says, trying to create legal arguments against the ruling. Isn't that how it's supposed to be done? Yeah, that's a great point, Chubby. He's like, and then they responded to me and made an argument that tried to undermine my decision, my opinion. You're like, I thought we were practicing law. Is this a courtroom? Or is this a clown show, circus freak show? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was a courtroom. Hey, one old guy. All of this mess BS is because SCOTUS is crap. They could solve a lot of this, but I think in many ways they're kind of just letting the screws get turned in on the Trump administration for whatever reason. NY says, I think it's time Congress make some changes to these inferior courts. I think it's time. Yeah, they could do that. And again, they won't because they're Congress. Hey, content of character says, yeah, right. It's a ridiculous order like this. Like, I sentence you to death. Now, I have no jurisdiction to do that at all, but you must die anyways. Okay. That doesn't feel like we're not going to just die because you said so. Thanks, though. We're a co-equal branch of government. Okay, co-equal. April Maid, what's up, April Maid? Says there has to be precedent somewhere. Would they be arguing to keep the September 11th terrorist walk freely too? Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I mean, there's a bunch of Democrat freaks right now. They want Luigi Mangione to go free. So many of them do. I think I saw Taylor Lorenz out there. Like, he's so handsome and beautiful. And like, he's got good morals. I think she said she's nuts. So yeah, there were Boston bomber lovers, like love those dudes who blew up people's legs off. All sorts of insane folks out there. So yeah, they'd probably want 9/11 terrorists. They'd probably put them on MSNBC. Thank you, April Maid, for the nice dono. Hey, thank you to you and the Watcher community for bringing some sanity to this all. Yes, thank you to the Watcher community. Keeping us all at an even keel, baseline. We appreciate you, the community. Thank you. We talked about that today on the Liberty Spenders podcast about how we're supporting each other through this time. What's up, David D? Hey, morning show. Ann Wojcicki, CEO of the bankrupt 23andMe, she was the sister of the YouTube CEO. She died of lung cancer last year. I remember the Wojcicki name. Wow. Yeah, this morning we were talking about 23andMe and how that was getting shifted over to China now. So they're going to have the DNA evidence of about 15 million Americans on hand if they take that company. Jigam says, how are judicial judges disciplined, Judge Robert? That's a real picture, by the way, from my time on the English court. And yeah, it's a great question. So a lot of it is done kind of internally. It's actually an interesting thing. You know, the judiciary is very opaque and a lot of it's managed inside the judiciary. So you can see, like, I think a lot of what's happening on display right now, I mean, very little discipline. There's judicial canons of conduct. There's judicial, commissions and boards who do some kind of like credentialing almost for judges. But when we talk about federal judges, you know, there's a chief judge of the court who kind of keeps order, separates conflicts and things like that. But in terms of like demotion or something, that's not happening. You know, are they going to get cases removed from them or something? You know, you never hear about judges getting indicted or showing up drunk or anything. Like, it's just not, they just deal with it internally. And even when you start looking into what the Supreme Court is doing, right, they're very opaque. Like FOIA doesn't apply to them. Like, you want to go get FOIA of what the Supreme Court did? Can we go get a FOIA just to see what they're up to? No, you can't. You can request it of them, but they're not going to give it to you. Okay, so it's a very opaque branch, very opaque. So limited discipline. It's almost like I think there are probably a lot of problems with judges that you never hear about because they're just dealt with internally, and you can't access the records. But that was from my time at Oxford. Hey, what's up? Thank you, Jigam, for bringing that picture back. Hey, number one deplorable says, the problem is our immigration laws. It's simple. You get caught crossing the border, you get turned around, sent back immediately on the spot. No due process there. Get back across the border now. Yeah, that should be right. That should be right. Right. You're stopped here. You're done. If you come to a port of entry, we've got laws that say, you know, asylum requests and these other things, but it should be a very high standard. And the baseline for admission is a high bar. What's up, April Maid? What would happen if habeas was suspended? Well, you'd run into a problem. Like, so you could say that Lincoln did that back during the Civil War, would detain people without justification for the detention. And he was called a tyrant for that. Other people called him a hero who was acting in under necessity. So there's precedent for it, but it's generally not a good thing. It's like a constitutional crisis situation. We don't want a country in which people are detained without cause. We don't want the Count of Monte Cristo where Edmond Dantes is thrown in the Chateau Reef for eternity and has to dig himself out. We don't want that. These illegals have gotten due process. We saw it in writing. They get an administrative review from somebody. They don't get trials. They don't get lawyers. They don't get hearings for end of, to the end of days. But they do get some process. They had it. They filed a lawsuit with Boasberg. So it depends, it depends on kind of what if habeas was suspended, the Supreme Court would flip out about it. And a lot of Americans, like if Trump came out and said there is no habeas protections at all anymore, a lot of people would flip. And I think we would too. One old guy says, Yates versus United States, legal question about whether fish could be classified as tangible objects under 18 U.S. Code, which pertains to the destruction or concealment of objects to obstruct federal investigators. Was that cited by Boasberg? That doesn't sound relevant at all. Thank you, one old guy, for the nice no-no. Are fish as tangible objects? It's a good question. Hey, Brian Cananzi. What's up, Brian? Is this judge opening himself up for trouble on appeal? Can they argue the judge knew he was outside of their jurisdiction when he advised the client to change their claim so he could keep it? Yeah, I mean, I think the judge is in trouble already. Like, the judge did a bunch of things. The Supreme Court, in their ruling that we read, gave him an opportunity to save face, like to, hey man, just kick this thing out and you'll be okay. Like, it's not your case. Kick it to Texas. Stop with the airplane crap. Let him deal with it there. But he just created a ticking time bomb now. And now the Supreme Court is going to have to come in here and settle this out. So now, would it be, criminal or something to like give somebody in his courtroom some feedback on a filing or their claim? I don't think so. It's little dishonest and unethical for him to tell them to strip the habeas claims out and then keep jurisdiction. Like, it's dishonest, but I don't know that it would be illegal. He should be impeached regardless for bad behavior. And I'm sure you can come up with some high crimes and misdemeanors here, certainly with conflict of interest with his wife and others. So yeah, we'll stay on it. Thank you, Brian. What's up? One old guy's opinion says, call them in and all of them can invoke their Fifth Amendment rights. That's another point too. Yeah. Rubio can just sit there. I'm not talking. Hey, God bless America says no court poop was going on during Joe's term. God bless America. Thanks for being here for 5 months. Uncle Bozy, I can imagine Chief Justice Roberts popping off and making the following order saying, it is hereby ordered that all district court judges will henceforth resume pretending to be neutral and unbiased and leave us up here in the Supreme Court alone. You're making us do too much of what we were supposed to be doing us alone, all along. Leave us alone. Signed by John Roberts, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. Yeah. He's like, I'm trying. It's nap time up here. Okay. Stop with all of these appeals and stay requests and more. Karen Quinn. What's up, Karen? Hey, these judges seem to be following positivism law as opposed to natural law. Not good for America. Yeah. Well, I think a lot of them they tend to be affiliates of this living, active, breathing Constitution, this dynamic law that should respond and be amorphous to be flexible with the times. That's really what a lot of the liberal judges think. The Constitution is this living, breathing, changing document. It's not. They wrote it down. You can read it. They should. Philip Butler. If Andy was an NGO, he would be a billionaire. But that's true. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Andy NGO. He's not an NGO. He's a really good reporter. But Andy NGO is just a fun little title that we have for him. So we'll see what we can do on it. But hopefully he's a billionaire regardless. Hey, Angie Warren, 23 months as a member. Thank you, Angie. That's coming up on 3 babies. Hey, thank you for your lives. Love your lives. Thank you, Angie. Thanks for supporting us and being here. We'll see you tomorrow on the Membo stream. Hey, Sorano Guardias. $10 says those kids have shaken baby or fetal alcohol syndrome. What's going on? Like 3 for 3 are disabled? What's going on over there? Like, is that a normal thing? Maybe they shouldn't continue to have kids or something. Like, are they doing something wrong? Do they know how it works? Like, what's going on? I don't know, but doesn't sound good. Hey, Sharpie guy, Andy NGO is pronounced it's pronounced Andy. He says no. It says the G is silent. Okay, so pronounce it like this. Andy NGO. Got it. Thank you. Rob White. Was that not a felony assault? Well, so she didn't report it that way, right? So why didn't she call the cops and make a police report? Why did she go in and get an injunction? That's another good question. And oftentimes some of that will turn on evidence. It will turn on, maybe a prosecution has declined it or something like that. But she could have called the cops. No reason she couldn't have. Stacy Milliken says the mainstream media will stay silent on this abuse report. OFC, no doubt. Yeah. They're already hyper invested in the administrative error Maryland man. Fake lie. So thanks for sharing this video to expose the truth. What's up, ELZ? In the 1930s and 40s, there was a criminal gang that terrorized New York City and other cities. They were all family guys with jobs. They just had a side hustle. They were called Murder Incorporated. Yeah. And I don't know if they had a bunch of lawyers calling them barbers and other things, but they probably did. Hey, Django Geek, who was the judge that sentenced Kilmar to prison? There was no judge who sentenced Kilmar to prison. We sentenced him to get out of our country, and then El Salvador is dealing with him as a gang member according to El Salvador laws. So there was no sentence to prison, but returned him to his home country, and they deal with gang members accordingly. So he's in COT as a result of that. So I don't know, maybe there was some judge in El Salvador that did, or some other judge down there that has approved of what they're doing down there, but it's not our problem. He's not in our country legally. He's there. So Linda Hunter, what's up? There needs to be a reckoning. Well, we're going through it right now. It's like a slow motion reckoning. We're just going to see where this lands. Thanks for being here, Linda Hunter, for 14 months. You're amazing. One old guy says, I told you that it would be true last week. Locate LEOs. IJ and BIA were right in their assertions of MS-13 gang membership. They were right. MS-13 gang membership. And they put the documents out so they can read them and weep. Says the I-213 for Kilmar is a CBP processing sheet. Yes. And we read some of the related links here. Hey, what's up, Goose Toots? Fun fact. When asked where do I get my news, I say my lawyer guy, Robert Govea, and I sent him a link. Thank you for doing that, Goose Toots. I really appreciate the shares. YouTube doesn't give us a lot of extra love, but your shares do. So thanks for doing that, Goose Toots. Hopefully they come join us. Doan is here. Von Hollen couldn't hop back on a plane soon enough. He's in the air. He's like, he's a domestic violence criminal. He strangled a constituent in Maryland. How many times? Twice? I'm going there right now. Okay. Thanks for the news. Says one old guy says, I have filled out many I-213s for processing many illegal aliens. Shout out to you, one old guy. Thanks for helping to clean up that mess. NY says, so I was against impeaching Boasberg before. After this contempt crap, I say impeach Boasberg. Many more like you, NY. This old guy says, Senator Van Hollen needs to reimburse the American taxpayer for the full cost of his trip to El Salvador to go hang out with gang member terrorists who beat our citizens. What a wild time it is. Hey, it's Bruce Rice Baby. Bruce Rice Baby. Dun, 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 dun. What's up? Look at this, Bruce. You're amazing. Oh my goodness. 50 new membos, my friends. Let's do it. Thank you, Bruce Rice, for bringing in. Pete is here. What's up, Vicky Fellers? We got MCE, Sodium Bromine. What's up, NABR? Adam Newman. We got Cassie Tippett, Wendy Sloan, the Willam Magger. The Willam Magger is here. We got Mr. Tony, Squirrel Friend. Welcome. Neil Nice, Fed Zeppelin, Rebecca Gallen, Kyle Cowden. What's going on? Patriot RV Life. Danielle is here. We got HD Warrior, Verly Toomey, Shannon Lee, Irish Girl. William Degnan is here. Richard Martin, James is here. Brandy Coffee, Cat Randall, Lauren Wren. What's up, SVT Medic? We got Philip Darden in the house. Stephanie E, Jan Harper, Chad Abernathy. What's up, Banana Dude? Bruce White, Rodney Jewett. We got Wow Shika, Jay Holland, Julia Hartley Barnes. What's up, Tim Riggs? We got TJ Goins, Abacus Finch is here. Henry Back to Play, Polly Shortcuts, Deucey Pee Wee Manskin. We got Robin V, Null Hypothesis, John Zimmerman, Larry Whitlock, Ryan Brennan, Heretic is here, Padre Blanco, and None Ya Business. Gifted membos, courtesy of Bruce Rice Baby. Dun, 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 dun. Thank you, Bruce, for doing that. 50 new membos, baby. Welcome aboard, new friends. Courtesy of Bruce. We'll see you back tomorrow on the Membo stream. And grab the stream from this morning. It was fun. One old guy, what's up? Says, under Trump, we enforced immigration law properly. Under Biden, immigration law was rewritten via executive orders and policies contrary to U.S. code. Yeah, and then they had the Code of Federal Regulations. Then they had the manuals. Then they had all these things that perverted the laws and meant that the Biden administration and the Democratic Party and the Republicans up until now can do whatever they want with the border, and they got away with it. Chubby says, so the union openly admits to providing aid to a foreign terrorist. Is that right? Yeah. Hopefully the DOJ investigates them and prosecutes them. Yeah. And a wife beater too. Twice. Unbelievable. Black Dragon. Flaming Black Dragon says these judges are going against the U.S. Constitution. That's true. 10 months as a member. And the Supreme Court agrees with us. Even the judge agrees. He's like, so what if it's defective? Do it anyways. One old guy's opinion says it is always the illegal aliens' burden to prove they are in the U.S. legally. Gang membership is not true, okay? They are anything. Says AOC is a pen. Second word, deja. Says Kilmar está en la casa de CONTEMPT. Yeah, that's where he is. He's in the house of CONTEMPT. Hey, Michelle Heim. Thank you, Michelle, for being a member and the nice dono today. Mikel, I think, says the senators who are going to El Salvador should commit to have a live-in in CONTEMPT and refuse to leave the facility until Abrego Garcia is allowed to return to Maryland. I like it, yeah. They should do a hunger strike, too, and just sit there and just have a strike. AOC can come in her white outfit again. She can hang outside the bars. Ah! It'd be a lot of fun. Meek hell. Thank you for that. Super fun. What's up? Thank you. Pinochet's helicopter tours. Isn't hiring an illegal? Is that just a fine to the union if caught? Is that why they do it? Prosecute them into bankruptcy. Yeah, why are they doing that? They love illegals more than they love Americans. Yeah, what's up? Number one deplorable says, Bukele should just tell everyone he's staying here. He's been held for other charges. We'll let you have him once it's time to serve. Yeah, it would be interesting if Bukele just came out and said, no, he's our citizen. We got files on him too. We got this all tracked up. So he's ours. We're handling it. Stay out. 200-watt studio says Van Hollen going to El Salvador needs to be played alongside the police reports and his wife's filing restraining orders for beating her in campaign ads for his rival. Totally. All day. Van Hollen flew down to El Salvador to meet with domestic violence offenders. Dun, dun, dun. You know, all the flashy stuff. Pinochet. Tulsi just declassified Biden's domestic terror campaign and the harassment policy for anyone right of Mao. She is impressing me. From Pinochet's helicopter tours. Good to see you, Pinochet. One old guy says the area U.S. Army is taking over. They left out the Mexican military incursion with that list. And yeah, we're curious what that's going to look like and why were we not in functional control of our border anyways. Hey, what's going on? Knox is here. Hey, gang membership does not qualify for protected status under the U.S. CIS criteria. The persecution must be by the home government, like El Salvador, not persecution by some random people. It has to be a state actor doing the actions and not someone attacking pupusas. That makes sense, Knox. Don't know why they thought otherwise. Hey, one old guy says, stinky feet and tushy Tish. Yeah, Alina Abba says that she took her shoes off in the middle of trial in the courtroom. You know how disgusting that is? Kay, what's up? Welcome aboard, Kay. We'll see you tomorrow. The members only morning stream. Knox is here. Federal immigration law provides that certain aliens who might otherwise be removed from the United States may be granted relief because they would likely face prosecution in their country of origin. Now, asylum is one of the most consequential avenues of relief for an alien, potentially affording them a permanent foothold in the U.S. To qualify, they must have a burden of proving past persecution or a well-founded fear of prosecution based on account of race, religion, membership, or particular social group or political opinion. Right. But that withholding, what does asylum have? He didn't have asylum. He had withholding. So what is this? How does asylum interface with the Alien Enemies Act? He had withholding, not asylum. And that's why he was removed. 200-watt studio says Signal Gate didn't work. Now it's El Salvador Gate. Yeah, they're working up. They're trying to find something that works, but they're running out of gas. Doan, seems like the more worked up Tish gets, the further her eyes wander off in opposite directions, like a chameleon. She's doing her thing. I could be wrong. No, I think you nailed it. One old guy says, Stinky Feet Tish's chickens have now come home to roost. Knox says, gang membership doesn't change their DNA. It's determined by areas, fellow associations, tattoos, self-declaration like gang signs on Instagram, and more. And so that's why the police referenced it. Hey, what's up? This one. Hey, Rob, I wanted to share this share this with the community. Take a look at this Give, Send, Go that was set up by Jeremy of the Quartering. Shout out to Jeremy of the Quartering. His dad was almost eliminated in front of his wife and likely will not make it. What the heck? Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry to hear that. All right. So thanks for the heads up. It's givesendgo.com/helpjacob. This father of two was nearly decapitated by some lunatic. Okay. So it's not Jeremy's dad. It's, but it's somebody else's. It's horrible. All right. So yeah, that's horrible. A hatchet wielding lunatic. Great. Thank you, Neuro D, for flagging that. Hey, Bezzy. This reminds me of when O'Reilly suggested Adams knew there were bones were buried in New York City. Makes me wonder if he was correct, LOL. Tish knows it's over. Yeah, that little freak out is an instinctive reaction because she knows she's in trouble. Hey, DB63 on Rumble. So the judge says turn around and Trump didn't comply fast enough, yet the president says gangbangers gone, and the judge says that's illegal because he didn't publish it. Pot calling kettle. Yeah, that's essentially what we're arguing about. When did the order come out? When did the planes take off? Why didn't they turn around? The judge doesn't buy Trump's explanation, and he's holding him in contempt. So it's going to be spicy. Hey, Tim S. says Judge Boasberg, in his contempt finding, published operational details despite promising in proceedings that he wouldn't do so if he was permitted access to the operational details. Yeah, that's another good point. He did. He's shared a lot about the internal conversations and the emails and the messages back and forth. And he said he wasn't going to do any of that. You're right. It feels like a lot of the operational details were included in that memo, doesn't it? Thank you, Tim. Great comment. Hey, Mikkel says justice finally catching up with one of the criminal Democrats. What's happening with all their eyes? They all look crazy. And her stopped looking in the same direction. They're both going outward in that pic. It's crazy. Yeah, well, we've been noticing this trend for a while. I think the one who first caught our eye, get it, was Crazy Eyes Griswold out of Colorado. Then that was followed up by Crazy Eyes Jocelyn Benson out of Michigan. And then you just start to see the pattern. Then Tish comes and they're just going nuts. That's what TDS will do to you. It's like the dark side of the force. It'll mess you up, man. Don't do it. Not even once. Friends, don't let friends TDS. What's up, Clark Blount? Renato is so sure of himself because he took each jab twice. Is that somebody in the chat? All right. Well, we love all of our chatters. So thank you, Clark. But I don't know what's going on here. But we love everybody. What's happening right now? I don't know. Hey, what's up? Tony Hey Munkets saying 5 Membo says honesty is a dying virtue. Jeanne Sullivan, Bestie Rose gifted a Membo, Flowing Glass, and Alley Cat gifted Membos courtesy of Tony Hey Munkets. Tony Hey Munkets, you rock. Thanks for doing that, Tony Hey. What's going on? Rick D. The written statement from the MS-13 guy's wife about the domestic. Oh, the gifts that keep on giving. Rick D. Yeah, so she wrote a whole statement about it. All right, we're going to save that for tomorrow. Hilarious. Thanks for that. Hey, what's going on? Sheila Poo saying Tish is a flight risk. She should be held without bond. She is. She seems very nervous, too, like she's going to hop on an airplane pretty soon. Amazing to see you. Viva! What happened here? So Viva came over. What's a raid? Is that something that happened on Rumble? We got raided by Viva? That sounds... it sounds a little scary, but if it's from Viva, I'm sure it's quite enjoyable. So thank you, Viva, for doing that. I don't even know what it is, but we're grateful for that. Thank you, Viva. Shout out to our friends, Viva. If you don't already follow Viva, of course you do, but they're right next door on the Rumbles. They're on Locals. They're on YouTube. They got Viva Barnes, law.locals.com. They're all over the place. We're big fans of Viva and Robert. So thank you guys. What's up, Viva? Good to see you. Hey, Dona's here. Set your clocks to Dems tagging you for what they're doing. Yes, that's right. Yeah, the projection. You can just, whatever they're accusing you of doing, you know that they're doing it, obviously. Off-label podcast, what's up? Tish may be in trouble, but her eyes are looking for two different exits at once. Prison time for the Howard graduate. I know, what is she so excited about? You went to Howard? Is that where Kamala Harris went? Like, no one cares. Whoopsie daisy. Here was one. Says, shush, Tish. Here you go. Shush, Tish. Here's your binky. Just plop that in there and stop your screaming. Hey, Sheila the Pooh, a million hugs to you, Sheila. Look, Sheila, thank you. What's going on? 10 membos coming in, courtesy of Sheila Pooh. We got Alicia Bradshaw. We got Dumb Dem Policy. Says what? Gracie Diaz. We got Elena's here. Suzanne Danielle, Jericho, and Salty C, along with Paul Engelbrecht and Mlod and IK. Gifted membos, courtesy of Sheila Pooh. Thank you, Sheila. A million hugs to you. And thanks for doing that. We'll see you new friends tomorrow on the membo stream. We got this one from Glenn Croy. Both eyes fighting to get off of her full head. Like, this lady's crazy. We got to get out of here. Which way are you going? I'm going left. All right, I'm going right. I'll see you later. Spuds. Rob, please rest assured that I, Spuds, did not vote for Tish James. In fact, due to the fact that there were many magnitude more voters than registered voters in the state of New York in 2022, Tish cannot prove that she actually won. Hey, what's up, Sharpie guy? It was an awesome show, Rob. Apologies for chiding you. My bad. You done good, brother. All good, Sharpie guy. I'm chide away. There's no problems being chided. However, I'm glad you enjoyed the show. Thanks for saying that. I thought it was a spicy one, no doubt. Tony Hay Munkets. What's up, Tony Hay? We got this one from Edith Garachi coming in. Tony Hay bringing 5 membos in. TJ Celtic. We got AE is here. We got Kenneth Grigsby. Welcome. And Lloyd Barnes in the house, courtesy of Tony Hay Munkets. Thank you, Tony Hay, for doing that. What's going on? This one also came in from Pinochet's helicopter tour. It's the most exciting ride you've ever been on. It says, Massachusetts is just as if not more corrupt than New York. Our governor appointed her ex-girlfriend to the Massachusetts Supreme Court and tried to pretend it wasn't corrupt. Her ex-girlfriend? That's interesting. That seems like somebody you might not want up there, you know? 200-watt studio says, Hakeem, I did this for you. You owe me. Save me. Yeah, that's the thing, right? Tish did do it for the Democratic cause. They all did it for the Democratic cause. They were being good Democrats. She thought Kamala was going to win and make her attorney general. I'm not kidding. Now she's going to go to prison. Hey, Sherry, LOL, the senator was denied entry into CCOT. They would not let him in or let him speak with Abrego Garcia, per the Independent. Yeah. I don't know what he thought he was going to do. Like break him out or something? Totally ridiculous. And he's now a domestic violence supporter. Incredible. Object Class Keeter says the Attorney General of Virginia should bring false business charges on James. Definitely. And demand $500 million. Wes Downer says narcissism from Tish, no doubt. Hey, don't, Rob, you cooked this show on high, baby. Man, I couldn't help it, man. It's just the ingredients. When they give you these steaks, we got to make them sizzle. That's a lot of stuff that came out today. Thank you, Don. It was a wild show. Wojo, hey, don't worry, Rob. If Judge Boasberg orders me to turn this $10 in, I will refuse. Yeah, I'm going to go to the mailbox. We're going to get an injunction from the judge to return all these super chats. Well, your super chats came in after my injunction, so you have to give them back. We're not doing it, Judge. Come and take them. Thank you, Wojo. I support it. Hey, Laura Leggett is here. Laura Leggett. Welcome, Laura. Thanks for becoming a membo. See you on the membo stream tomorrow. This one came in from Calling Drew. Little fabulous Shibu. What's up, Drew? Drew Godkin. Thank you, Drew. Look at this, bringing in 5 membos. Robert the Great is here. There's another one. Purple Drink is here. Anthony Watt, Matthew Queendoy, and Bernie's Book Tour is here. Amazing. Thank you for bringing them in here, Drew. Appreciate you doing that. This one came in from Drew. Hey, Rob, what does the Logan Act say about senators going to a foreign country to undermine U.S. foreign policy? So it's a great question. I mean, we know that senators travel to foreign countries all the time. I'm not as familiar with the Logan Act as I should be, but they go all the time, right? They're traveling. They go on these foreign codels and other things. So I don't know if it prohibits them from doing it. I think like the John Kerry thing is because he was a private citizen. So I think senators can go and do this stuff. It's where they get their foreign policy chops. They go on these trips and stuff. Now, the question about undermining, like to get a terrorist back into America, that's a whole separate equation. Never seen that before. So it's a good question, Drew. And I would imagine it's allowed. Like they can go and say things, but politically, they should be held accountable for that. Maybe he will. Thank you, Drew. What's up? Julia Peters. Thank you, Julia. Thanks for becoming a membo. Grab the stream from this morning. We'll see you tomorrow. Mikel. What's up, Mikel? Hey, don't forget, Trump can pardon himself now. Thank you, Biden. Well, Biden pardoned his whole family, right? He didn't pardon, Biden didn't pardon himself, as far as I remember, but everybody else. So Trump now has carte blanche to do the same thing. And maybe himself too. Like, why not? What's up, Wes Downer? A thought. A social security number would allow an illegal to get an investment account, maybe, with E-Trade and invest their gangbanger money in the stock market, which is for U.S. citizens only. Yeah, that's interesting. Is the stock market for U.S. citizens only? Is that enforced at all? Yeah, it's true. I mean, they could be cleaning their money using American financial institutions. Uncle Bozy, I love it when these hack judges go ballistic. Truth is, they have no teeth in these circumstances. They're totally impotent. Right, which is why they spend 40 minutes saying they have the power to do these things. Like, no, you don't. Mikel, what's up? Any information on where that bill to give Trump a third term is at? I don't know where it's at. I do remember there was one congressperson who did submit it. I doubt it's going anywhere, right? I think there was an amendment too that was filed. There's a couple of these, but I have not seen any activity on it. And if I do, we'll know about it. Thank you, Mikel. We got Rob on Rumble saying the contempt will be tossed because Bozo doesn't have venue. He overreached on the executive as well. This is separation of powers, and he should know better. Gons is here. Thank you, Gons, for being here for 16 months. Thanks for the message. Says, keep up the good work. Thank you, Gons. Thanks for being here. Almost 2 babies. Pinochet says, okay, so criminal contempt could be found for giving student loans contrary to the Supreme Court ruling, you know, like maybe in the Fifth Circuit. Yeah, but the judges didn't care about Joe Biden's lawlessness. They supported it because it was in alignment with their principles. Hey, T-Dog. What's up, T-Dog? 8 months as a membo says, OMG, Robert kills me with the afuera. Well, it's just such a fun thing to say. And I have to take total inspiration from the Argentinian president, Javier Milei, who did it more beautifully than I can ever do it. But I'm working on it to recreate it in his likeness. Tony Hay Munkets. Hey, says Rob should wear that wig and glasses when he hits 500K. Yeah. Well, I'll have to go get it from Oxford, obviously. Tony Hay, thanks for bringing in 10 more membos, Tony Hay. Malchus Dunn, Kat is here. We got Karen Vaughn, Mr. Twister, Elizabeth Loveland, Rob Emfield. What's up, Bev Red Wave? We got Jose G, French Fry, and Deputy Director number 50. Gifted membos courtesy of Tony Hay Munkets. Thank you, Tony Hay, for doing that. What's up? One old guy says, Taylor Luigi Mangione is so pretty that he will be very popular in prison because that pretty boy is going to be a prison boy. Yeah. G-Men, if the Dems are flying down there now, the Senate should reconvene and push bills through while they're out of the country. Pass everything we need to. Yeah. And ban terror-loving senators as well. Hey, Deluxe Knight, I swear, doesn't matter if it is some late night infomercial or a Windows ad like this. Why are white people always portrayed as complete idiots and morons? Because they hate us. That's why. Just an observation I've made throughout my life. The discrimination is disgusting. Yeah, everywhere, right? It's always like the bumbling white loser father who can't keep a job or do anything useful. And you have some multicultural hero, feminine warrior who's the moral character, who's much better for everybody than the bigoted white male. I know. Terry Williams, what's up? Thank you, Terry, for becoming a supporter. We'll see you tomorrow on the Membo stream. Christy, my love, thank you for the nice dono. Amazing of you to do that. G-Men says El Salvador should just press charges at this point and just refuse extradition. Yeah, I don't know how their legal system works. Like, what is their basis for holding any of those people? Did they get due process? What's the process? I don't know. But that's their country. He's a citizen of theirs, not ours. Thank you, G-Men. Lady L. Hey, thank God for y'all. I crave common sense. Me too, Lady L. I think that's why we get along so well. Thanks for being here and for the nice dono. Prayers and hearts back to you, Lady L. Thank you. What's up, Tony? Hey, says Dolphin fan is the man in the house. Thank you, Tony. Hey, shout out to Dolphin fan. And here was one from John McGarvey sharing this one over on the locals. So Trump posted this. Says, can you believe it? A judge ruled against us on 530,000 illegal migrants that Joe Biden flew over the border in his program to transport illegals into the country by airplane, saying they can't be looked at as a group, but that each case has to be tried individually. Now, based on the court system, that would take approximately 100 years. What is going on with our courts? They are totally out of control. They seem to hate Trump so much that anything goes. We are trying to bring our country back from the destruction. I want a common sense policy. We're not having hundreds of thousands of trials. Where is the justice here? We'll come back on that one tomorrow. One old guy says, this is being fulfilled Isaiah 5:20. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, and that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Deluxe Knight says, why are you guys not liking this video? I am obviously in a goofball mood this evening. We love you. Thank you to Deluxe Knight, our farmer, telling locals to hit the like button for the love of all. G-Men, these senators are actively violating the Logan Act. That's what G-Men says. Just saying. James says, Andy, NGO, Andy, NGO, and Andy knows his name, oh, something like that. A-N-D, NGO, A-N-D, NGO, and NDO is name, oh, something like that. I don't know. Thank you for that, James. I tried. Hey, Tony, hey, be proud, Patriots. We got Trump in, baby. We are winning. Totally. Yeah, this contempt stuff, it's all just flailing, coping, scrambling. It's like the end of Terminator 2 when the T-1000 is like transmorphing into all the things. That's what all these judges are doing. It's pathetic. Christy, my love, said, I would love it if any questions about El Salvador regarding El Salvador, dudes. All of these have been asked and answered. Let's suck the oxygen off of this topic. All these have been asked and answered. Let's suck the oxygen off of this topic. Well, we will. Yeah, we'll beat it to death, no doubt. Pinochet, why was Abba moved to New Jersey again? I don't know. I don't know if she's got a background there or what, if she's from there, and it just seemed like a good spot for her. I don't know specifically why that district was picked. TTV Aaron, what's up? I hope that the senator was going to be the MS-13 gang member, bring the MS-13 gang member back, so that he could be charged with smuggling a terrorist into the United States. Yeah. And then adjudicated, deported, and sent to CCOT together. G-Men, violating the Logan Act is a felony. For the penalty, it says, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 3 years or both. The fine can be up to $250K. Wow. One old guy saying, eyes window to the soul, and in those eyes are demons in all the Dems. Eyes are the window to the soul. Hey, on Rumble and Twitch, a channel can pick another channel for their viewers to automatically be sent to after the stream ends. So that's probably what Viva was doing. Shout out to Viva. We appreciate it. Hey, Mikkel says, Boasberg is trying to get hit with high crimes and misdemeanors. I like how you pronounce my name. I'm not going to correct it. So don't stop. Mikkel. Yeah, clearly. Mikkel Heim. All right, it's what it is. All right, so thank you. Yeah, and I think there definitely was an impeachment filed against some federal judges. I can't remember if it was Boasberg as we sit here today. Hey, Deluxe Knight, a raid is on Rumble when a creator merges their stream to another creator and gets the followers to blow up the chat. So Viva was sending us a love raid. What a nice guy he is. Amazing dude. Hey, what's going on? Let's see what this one says. Great grandma. That is a very spicy comment that we know you're joking about. We appreciate the dono, but we love peaceful political resolutions to all of our conflicts. What's up? One old guy said this: El Salgard, go kick rocks. ASS Van Hollen is here. One is good to see you. One old guy. Pinochet's helicopter tour says, in this market, with all the fired feds property up for sale, $30,000 tops, value tops. There's great grandma Anon again. There we go, great grandma. 18 months today. Yay, love you, Rob. We love you back, great grandma. Great grandma went pretty hard up on that prior comment. She's like, you know what I feel like doing? I'm like, all right, all right. We understand you're upset, but all right, we love you. No feds. And it was a joke. It was a political joke. FBI, chill out. Although most of those corrupt FBI scammers are gone. G-Men says, according to a long conversation with ChatGPT, this is a violation of the Logan Act. Speech and debate clause may not be a valid defense in either situation either. That's good to know. Yeah, G-Men. I'm not sure. I don't know much about it, but that is well worth looking into. Hey, this one came in. Hey, Christy Cats. Wow. Okay, Christy Cats. Hey, Watcher fam. Hi, Rob. Love you guys. We love you back, Christy. I have to go back and watch the show from today. Thank you for your prayers last week for my son. He's hanging in there. This is Joe, her boy, her baby boy, and Tom Brady. What a cool pick, man. That's a cool pick. I don't know what was going on there, but that looks awesome. So more prayers coming your way for your boy, your son, Joe, to the Christy Cats household. Hopefully he's recovering well. Thanks for the update and for the cool pick. Hey, what's up? Renee, 4 months as a member, says Kash Patel has the same crazy eyes as Tish. Just saying. Does he? Well, eyes can be tricky sometimes, right? Sometimes, like, I even notice this when we're here on the show. Like, sometimes if I'm looking at the front of the camera, my eyes look a little more cross. If I'm looking through the camera, they look differently. If I'm like hyper focused right here, and then I go like this, like they kind of take a minute to. So when it, and lenses and distance and those things, but I think Tish's is pretty consistent across the board. So I'm not sure if Kash has the same thing going. I haven't seen it. My eyes are just beady too. Yeah, I don't know. That's probably true. Yeah, who knows? So it's a good question. I guess we'll have to keep track on that. Could we call him Crazy Eyes Cash? It's a good nickname. Sherry, do we know for a fact that we are not paying for El Salvadorian citizens in CCOT that we sent? No, I think they have confirmed. So here's the question. We definitely are paying for some. I think that we've confirmed that. Are we paying for the El Salvadorians is the next question. So like we would pay them to host Venezuelans in El Salvador because they're not El Salvadorians. And the Venezuelans won't take back their Tren de Aragua folks. So for those, yeah. But what about their own citizens? All we're doing is just returning their own people back to them. So why would we pay them for that? I don't know. Hey, what's up, Relantel? What's up, Relantel? Rel is here. Bringing in new friends. Rel, thank you. Mountain Goddess came in. R. Luster Penn is in the house. We got Shell is here. Amber Talon. Paulette C. Gifted membos. Thank you, Relantel, for doing that. Saying, hey, marathon stream tonight. How do you stay hydrated? Mostly don't. Yeah, mostly don't. We're just operating on pure love of America. That's all we need. We don't need water. We just need liberty. Tony, hey, can you give a shout out to old drill sergeant? He's been missing in action for quite a while, and we love him. All right. Old drill sergeant, you are being summoned. We miss you. We hope that you're out there and doing well. And we wish for your speedy return. Thank you, Tony. Hey, one old guy says ASS Van Hollen said that he was going to demand, not suggest, Kilmar's return. All in the wording, but he didn't make it happen. And so, my friends, oh my goodness, thank you for all of those donos. Thank you for the amazing support. I am always humbled and so appreciative of it. We couldn't do it without you, so thank you for doing that. We're going to say hello to our friends on X right now, and then we're going to say hello to our friends on Locals for our members only after party for a little bit, and then we'll leave it there on the day. Of course, before we wrap it up, let's say what's up to our friends on X. And we have some comments. What's up, Mini Tika? Hey, Barb is over there. Barb says, how about putting one MAGA immigration judge on every flight? Just fill out the paperwork there. Then they're getting a hearing on the way out. Yeah, it's like when you come in on the airplanes and they're like, do you want to fill out your customs form or whatever? Yep, Elliot is sharing. Boom, a notice of appeal just hit. So that's the Boasberg case. Lickety split. Appeal has happened. Fred Petamonte says, Stephen Gardner shouted you out being on his show. When was that? I think that was about a week ago, I want to say. I want to say that, Fred. Good to see you. This one came in. What's up? James Pepper, nice to see you. B. Torn is over there. We got Free Thinking Latina says, so is AG going to arrest the AG? Would it look like this? What do you mean, what am I doing? I'm kicking my own butt. Do you mind? From Liar Liar. Great movie. What's up? Political Contrast. Since Garcia was confirmed to be MS-13 member in 2019, does the law require a new case to show current involvement? I mean, I would say no. I think he got the total due process that he needs. They would want him to have due process over and over and hearing after hearing after hearing so that they can keep going until they win. But that's not what we're working for. Hey, George, I realize that Tish was a chameleon. Retired Dave is over there. CMAD is over there. Yep, talking about the SCOTUS decision and more. And what's up, one veteran? What's up, Bill? Great to see everybody. Thanks for saying hello on X and for following us over there. My friends, it has been a beautiful and an amazing stream. Thanks for hanging out with us extra long today. We are going to wrap it up and leave it there. We're going to head on over to Locals. We'll hang out for a bit. We'll say hello. Otherwise, my friends, we're coming back tomorrow. It's going to be a beautiful Thursday. Before we round it out, we want to thank our amazing mods, K Bean, Donut Mind Me, clipped extra hard today, Carrie B, Playing Hooky, Dog Digger, and Janek. Thank you, my friends, for the amazing donos. Welcome to all of our new membos, and thanks for supporting our work. Really could not do it without you, and it's an honor and a privilege and a treat to be going through history together. So it means the world. Thank you for that. All right, so we're going to leave it there, my friends. We're going to come back tomorrow, and we're going to get into it again. But in order to do that appropriately, we are going to need to see you right back here so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.